What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing what if. Naruto is half snake. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. I actually have a suggestion, said Jiraiya. Go on, sensei. How about let Orochi Temmate train Naruto, then we can focus on Kato. Your other son's pretty connected to Tami's apprentice, so it may work, Jiraiya finished in thought. Orochimaru whistled nonchalantly. Whoa, I can't believe this. You actually said something smart for once. Looks like there's still intelligence in that pea-sized brain of yours, he sneered mockingly. Jiraiya fumed and started firing insults, which were brushed off with a laugh. Well, that could actually work. Orochimaru, your opinion? The blonde Yondaime turned around to face the said person, who only shrugged in response. Just make sure that the brat isn't as noisy and energetic as his brother. Forest of Death. Fuuten. Renkuden, wind release, drilling wind bullet. Naruto released bullets of air which could literally cut anything. Anko was gone for her trademark, routine. Thus he was free to train his elemental affinities without anyone knowing. Scrolls lay in logs of the unfortunate trees he had cut and burned during his training. The blonde was half sure that he was a high-ranked genin to solid chunin. An incredible feat for a 4-year-old, who was still supposed to be playing around with toys and such. Unfortunately, he didn't have those luxuries as he was forced to mature and grow as quickly as possible in the cruel world. Fuuten. K's Yeba, wind release. Blade of wind, he said again, this time, much more calmer than the last jutsu, as he released an air blade which went sailing through a tree, leaving a gaping hole behind. Power and chakra is clearly enough, but my control seemed to be a bit off, and I'm not sure about its stability, thought the blonde as he analyzed the effects of his jutsu. Then again, I could always use a Kaden jutsu and use this to increase the damage. Screw it. I am going to practice my fire release right now. Kaden. Gokakyu no jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique, he exclaimed, releasing a decent amount, but impressive for someone his age, of fire and aiming it at the tree. Kaden. Hosenka no jutsu, fire release. Art of the Phoenix Flower. The touch me not, he casted fireballs again, but this time, half the size of what he made earlier. The poor tree now had burnt holes and smoke all over it, along with some leftover flames. This is going to take a toll on my chakra, Naruto mused in thought as he sped through hand signs. Kaden. Heizekisho no jutsu, fire release. Ash pile burning technique. He nearly yelled, a thick cloud appearing around the wood. He clicked his teeth, causing the cloud to combust into flames and burn the tree. I knew I should have kept it down, Naruto sighed as he did the necessary hand signs for a water jutsu. Sweden. Suiryuden no jutsu, water release. Water dragon bullet technique. He watched impassively as a water dragon popped up from seemingly out of nowhere and crashed into the flames, effectively removing the fire from existence. On the nearby trees, Orochimaru went wide-eyed at the show of jutsus the blonde had made. 3 elemental affinities were impressive for a shinobi, but to have a 4-year-old child fire C-rank to A-rank jutsus like it was candy was amazing, for the lack of a better word. As he mused in his thoughts, the child narrowed his eyes at where he was. Not only does he have 3 affinities, but he's a sensor as well? Kukuku, this child's going to be a great shinobi in the future, Orochimaru thought as he jumped down from the tree to meet the blonde. To his surprise, the child in front of him slowly shook his head. Just great. All I need now is another crazy snake sadist. The child plopped on the ground, a gloomy aura surrounding him. So, the blonde stressed the word. What can I do for you? He asked, casting slight mistrust towards him. Unless you're here to find Anko, who's not present since she's having her usual routine, or to kill some time, be my guest. How old are you, brat? Orochimaru asked, forgetting to ask Minato, and he wasn't in the mood to figure out for himself. Honestly, he wasn't up to do anything these days. Maybe the brat would drive some inspiration in him again. I'm 4, you old snake, he answered with a retort. Looks like he hated the brat comment, Orochimaru mused, noting the fact. I'm not that old. Sure, he said sarcastically, shifting from his position. Orochimaru just watched as he pulled out a scroll and started scribbling some seals in it. Don't tell me that this brat knows Fuinjutsu? Orochimaru gasped in shock, uncharacteristically making a great imitation of a fish or of water. What's your name? Naruto. Naruto Namikaze. The answer unnerved him greatly. He wasn't supposed to know, but he does. Now that the snake Sanin knew about his knowledge of his parents, his heritage, and somehow, his skills, maybe they could bond together, after all. So, you wanted to teach me? Naruto asked for confirmation, which was awarded with a subtle nod. Not to sound ungrateful, but why? He asked again, confusion lacing his tone. Apart from the fact that your father wanted me to teach you, you interest me. A 4-year-old shouldn't be speaking like an adult, much less think like one. The snake Sanin only blinked as Naruto shrugged. Okay? It came out more of a question rather than a statement. Good. Come here at 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't be late, and that's a warning. 4 years. 4 years of training, hard work, injuries, and such. Yet, Naruto couldn't deny the results. His stamina and chakra reserves had increased drastically, as well as his arsenal for jutsus. He managed to master his 3 elemental affinities, using C to A rank techniques like Kandy. He knew how to use a sword. His Kenjutsu could give Orochimaru a run for his money. He didn't neglect Fuinjutsu, though, and became a level 7 seals master. He hadn't started practicing Senjutsu, but he was determined to do so. The first year was mainly consisting of stamina and endurance training, specifically in taijutsu. He had weights, both physical and seals, placed on him every day. It made his body as heavy as hell, but he didn't mind. The results were glorious. He also fixed his taijutsu style, leaving minor flaws and a few openings. He also learned how to add chakra to his attacks. Although his attacks weren't as fatal as Tsunade's, it could break a bone or two once it connects to his opponent. Orochimaru and Anko had abnormally paled when he told them about adding chakra into his attacks. The second year was basically learning Kenjutsu, and upgrading his Fuinjutsu. He was a natural at using swords, something that both of his senseis were proud of. He chose twin swords, seeing that he liked having blades on both of his hands, but can use one sword if needed to be. As an Uzumaki, he can use Fuinjutsu like it was a second nature to him. Oftentimes, he placed some silencing seals at random people to stop them from yelling, namely Maida Guy and Rock Lee. The third and fourth year consisted of ninjutsu. Having 3 elemental affinities was unheard of, but it was amazing at the same time. He read scrolls of different types of jutsus, and tested them out. To his surprise, every jutsu he tested came out as a success. On the 4th year of his training, he found something very interesting. He combined his wind and water jutsus, resulting in making a hurricane of ice. He knew that none of his parents were part of the Yuki clan, so it must be something different. Nonetheless, he practiced his Hyeten, ice release, asking for scrolls about ice. Orochimaru and Anko got the shock of their lives when he showed them a snowflake on his palm in the middle of summer. He still had difficulty in mastering it, considering that he wasn't a part of the Yuki clan. By then, he was 8 years of age, but was a high Jonin in level, bordering on very low Anbu. July 7, X 777. Reminds you of anything? As usual, I got into another argument with Orochimaru sensei, right before Anko Nei-chan dragged me into the T&I department. It was so cool tilde. She told me how to interrogate, torture, the prisoners in there. I met Inoichi-san, the head of the Yamanaka clan and an expert in going through one's mind, which is usual for his clan. He's more of a father to me, and can be a mother hen. Please don't tell him or anything, in certain incidents. I also saw Shikaku-san, the head of the Nara clan. Honestly, he's lazy but great. We always ended up in draws when we play shogi. He told me that we would play again next time. The others in the T and I were surprised, probably because they hadn't seen a kid play with a Nara and even up with him. Then there's Ibiki-san, he's like a father and older brother combined. He keeps a strong facade on, but he's a softie, I promise you. I forced him to tell one of his secrets. He had numerous teddy bears hidden in his house. What did I tell ya? He's a softie. I met Yugo-san, or Cat in Anbu, as Anko Nei and I went home. We sparred a bit and chatted. Anko Nei then got into a heated staring contest with Yugo Nei, saying that she was my best older sister. I don't know why, they're both my sisters. So, there isn't a problem, right? I saw Kashi Ni-san along the streets. He's reading his book again, something Anko Ne called porn. I don't know what that means, and every time I ask, they always reply the same thing: when you're older, we'll tell you. It's really infuriating. I really wanted to know, but Anko Ne and Yugo Ne would always beat the crap out of Kashi Ni when he tried to tell me. It was to save my innocence or something. I really want to know now. And surprise, surprise, Shizune Ne taught me how to use senbon needles. She told me that I was a natural for it, and even helped me add wind chakra and poisons in my senbons. I think she and Anko Ne are the best of friends, since they love making poisons. I joined them these days. Poison is really wonderful. I tried it on Orochimaru sensei, but he dodged and sweated buckets. He muttered something along the lines of, "I don't want any other poison sadists around me." Well, poor you, sensei, I already am a sadist and I love poison. I met Minato-san. No way am I going to call him my father, Kushina-san, and there's no way am I going to call her my mother, and my twin brother, Kato. I never really had anything against him, but he got a 20-meter pole up his ass like that Uchiha. I think his name was Sasuke, just kidding, it's Sasuke. Both of them are boastful, arrogant kids, and they're only 8. My biological parents, Minato-san and Kushina-san, Fugaku-san, and Miko Ka-san should fix that problem right now, to prevent that pole from getting longer. I almost forgot. Miko Ka-san brought me some homemade onigiri. She's a wonderful cook, believe it. She also gave me a scroll containing S-rank fire jutsus, and I'm thankful for that. Orochimaru sensei won't give me cause it's either he's too lazy to look for a scroll or he's over worrying about me because I'm just an 8-year-old boy. Until then, ya ne tilde. Naruto. Naruto smiled a bit as he finished his daily entry on his journal. He closed it, and placed his quill inside the ink bottle. He laid down on his bed, discreetly snickering as his older sister snored from 2 rooms across his own. I wonder what would happen tomorrow. He yawned a bit, turning around to face the window, watching the leaves dance from outside. The moonlight reached his eyes and he squinted a bit. I'm bored, he mumbled, greeting the sleep he needed, dreaming of the times he trained. Dream, flashback, Fuuten, Renkuden, wind release, drilling air bullet, Sweden, Suiryuden no Jutsu, water dragon bullet technique. To his uttermost surprise, a blizzard of ice and snow was formed. Soon enough, it died down, revealing frozen trees and the cold, hardened ground. Naruto blinked and stepped forward, only to channel chakra to his feet so he doesn't slip away. This is going to be too troublesome, he thought. Kaden. Karyu Enden, fire release, fire dragon flame bullet. Fuuten. Renkuden, drilling air bullet. The combined jutsus melted the ice, turning it into water. Thinking quick on his feet, he casted 2 water dragons and sent the incoming water towards a nearby river. The blonde sighed in relief but shuddered at the thought of his sister-like figure going berserk at the small incident. He prayed to Kami for him not to receive the end of Anko's poison and sadistic self tomorrow. The next day, with Anko, Orochimaru, and Naruto. How was your training yesterday, brat? The snake Sanin asked, causing Naruto to slightly twitch and throw a bottle, which he had gotten out of nowhere, at his sensei. The said mentor dodged but got hit with another bottle that purposefully hit his forehead. I told you to stop calling me that, you old snake. What did you call me, you blonde idiot? I called you an old snake, geezer. Luckily, Anko was there to stop the incoming fight, which started by a simple insult. She sweat dropped as her sensei and younger brother glared at each other before splitting apart. Ruto, how was your training yesterday? She asked meekly, inching away as her other 2 companions released some scary killing intent. It was fine, Anko ne, he grumbled under his breath. Somehow, Anko heard along the lines of, Baka-sensei, stupid snake, and her overall favorite insult, snake pedophile. Well, we both will be going now. Anko forced a smile and ushered her sensei to leave. Not long before they started to jump from a tree branch to a tree branch, Naruto called to them again. And by the way, Anko ne, Orochimaru sensei, can I borrow a scroll containing Hyeten jutsus, ice release techniques? Why? Because I may or may not have the Yuki clan's bloodline. Naruto smirked and formed a water snowflake, then cooled it down with a slight wind jutsu. Orochimaru's and Anko's eyes literally screamed, "What?" as the blonde only chuckled at their reactions. disappearing in an ice shunshin. Naruto, come back here, you brat. The two roared and growled lowly afterwards. End. Morning. Naruto yawned as his eyelids fluttered open, stretching to relieve his muscles of the slight strain. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes as they gazed towards the clock on his wall. The clock showed 4:12 a.m. in bold, light blue letters. He blinked once, twice, then glanced at the clock again. No change in the time, except for the mere seconds that passed by. I woke up earlier than I wanted to, he thought, shuffling towards the bathroom. But hey, the more training, the better. He did his usual morning routine, take a leak, brush his teeth, wash his face to make sure he is fully awake, then take a bath, dress up in his usual shinobi clothes, and go to the kitchen for a breakfast. Since he was the only one awake, he settled for some milk, a few apples, and the leftover onigiri Makoto gave him yesterday. He placed a note on the table, knowing that his sister would freak out at seeing his bed was empty and there were no notes around the house. Double-checking to see that his sister was asleep, he shrugged and closed the door to her bedroom. He opened the front door and locked it again, taking a brisk jog around Konoha as a warm-up. Training ground number 15. Naruto can be seen meditating on the grassy field, his posture calm and serene, and it seemed like he was just relaxing. In reality, he was practicing a fire jutsu inside the scroll his mother-like figure gave him, testing it out inside a barrier he had created to withstand the pressure of S-rank techniques and even higher. He channeled chakra on the area in front of him, miles above his head but still inside the barrier. He compressed the chakra and slowly converted it into flames, forcing it to heat up and increase its size. When he decided the chakra was enough, he slammed both of his hands on the ground, his eyes still closed. Kaden. Shinhidora no Jutsu, True Hydra Technique. As the yell ended, the fire powered by chakra took the form of a large dragon with 3 heads, roaring as it sped towards the ground. The dragon had contact with the ground and it exploded, sending debris and chunks of earth flying around the barrier. The said barrier cracked and disappeared, allowing the flying debris to shower the training ground. As soon as he heard the explosion, Naruto smiled, knowing that he had completed an S-rank technique in just a matter of hours. After all, hard work, a prodigy and a genius can be combined, right? Well, you sure do train early. Naruto didn't need to turn around for him to know who the speaker was. That voice, that lazy, somehow drawling tone, and the length of the shadow was all too familiar to him. However, the chakra signal and smell was different. It was pretty simple, a henge, but who would imitate Kakashi, just to see him? They say that the early bird catches the worm. Anyways, why are you up so early, Kashi ni? The blonde asked, shifting slightly in his meditating position. Or more importantly, what happened to this training ground? One moment it was sparkling, clean, and it doesn't have a 35-feet crater in the middle, and the next moment it has a 35-feet crater, chunks of earth spread around, debris littering or rather, adorning the field, burnt trees, and small fires burning everything. Kakashi gave him a smile with closed eyes, or whatever. I was practicing a jutsu and, let me guess, Kaden. Kan Funka, fire release, blaze eruption. Naruto immediately knew that the person was definitely not Kakashi. The silver-haired nin didn't even know that technique. Not even close, Naruto replied. Kaden. Shinhidora no Jutsu, fire release, True Hydra Technique. Kakashi made a great imitation of a fish out of water, with his mouth opening and closing and his eyes as big as dinner plates. But, he stuttered, clearly unable to form a coherent word. That's an S-rank T technique. It is, Naruto agreed, inwardly laughing at the sight of his older brother, not that he was the real one, anyways. So, back to business, his cerulean blue eyes got a shade darker. Why are you here? What do you mean? Is it bad for me to check up on my surrogate little brother? The silver-haired ninja asked confusedly, acting as innocent as possible. Did Danzo-san send you? Asked Naruto. Aye. What do you mean, nah? Kakashi toppled down like a sack of rice, his henge disappearing in a cloud of white smoke. It revealed an Anbu with a root mask and the traditional Anbu outfit. Stupid Danzo. Sending a spy to monitor my progress. I wonder if he knew my ice release, my skills, my heritage and my secrets, Naruto mused in thought, still staring at the unconscious rude Anbu on the ground. Still, Poking your nose where it doesn't belong is never a good thing. I can guarantee you that, you old war hawk. He silently warned Danzo as he looked up at the sky, specifically where a bird was present. With Anko. The purple-haired Kunoichi yawned as sunlight streaked to her bedroom. Groggily opening her eyes, she somehow went to the bathroom, surprisingly without tripping on the carpet and numerous objects on the floor. She did her morning routine and went to her younger brother's room. To her surprise, he wasn't there, so she hastily glanced around the rooms, only to find a note on the kitchen table. Anko nay. I woke up at 4 a.m. Isn't that great? My brain obviously doesn't want me to sleep. Anyways, I went out to train, don't even bother looking for me. I'll be in the forest of death, as you dubbed it, at noon. P.S. There's dango in 2 storage scrolls that I left on top of the table. P.P.S. Please don't hate me. Naruto. Anko's eyes brightened at the thought of dango. She eagerly channeled chakra onto the scrolls, and out came 2 heaps of the sweet food she liked. Yum. Ichiraku's ramen. 2 miso ramen. Please. Ayame ne. The ramen shop was the only place that allowed Naruto to eat peacefully, as all the other restaurants would sneer and give him overpriced, rotten, and disgusting food, along with the people who would jeer and mock him there. Naruto had taken it into account and called the Ichirakus his family. Oh, Naruto, what brings you here? The usual? Ayame greeted the blonde she saw as a younger brother. Her question was awarded with a subtle nod, causing her to get to work and fix Naruto's favorite food. Kushi-chan, how's Kato doing? The familiar voice of the Yondaime Hokage echoed within the blonde's ears as he hastily finished up his food. He paid the bills for the ramen and thanked his sister-like figure, preparing to leave the area where his biological family were present. Oh, Kato's doing well in Fuinjutsu. I estimate that he's a level 5 sealing master and, and Naruto? The redhead asked, slightly stammering at his other son's name, staring at the mop of golden hair that adorned the boy's head. Yes, Kushina-san? Naruto stiffened at first, but steeled his nerves and turned around to face his biological family, not that they were to him, at the very least. His expressions was as impassive and blank as a stone wall, causing them to flinch at his lack of emotional display. Ayame looked at him worriedly, as well as Tucci. Neither had seen the blonde so emotionless. Although he was quiet, he showed some emotions when necessary. Seeing him as cold as ice somehow brought shivers down their spines. How are you? Kushina swallowed the lump in her throat as Naruto left without another word. We messed up, didn't we? She asked her husband sadly as they both watched the retreating form of their son. We did. We really did. I hope we can get him back before it's too late. With Naruto. Damn them, Naruto hissed as he punched a tree, forcing his fist through the bark. Pain began to ricochet in his fist, but he ignored it as he punched the tree again. First, they leave me in the orphanage and disown me as their own son, Naruto thought as he kicked a tree, causing it to fall backwards as his leg was infused with chakra. He spun around and gave a chakra-infused punch towards another tree, making a dent on the bark. Secondly, they allowed the villagers to torture and do anything with me, and they did absolutely nothing to stop them. The blonde yelled in his mind as a huge fireball spewed from his mouth, effectively charring a lot of wood and bark. Thirdly, they kept their sole attention on my twin brother and left me in the dust, whilst they only sent a sensei after me. I bet that they didn't even care, but someone reminded them about me, so they sent Orochimaru sensei, in order not to lose face. Tears stung his eyes as he closed them for a moment. Fourth of all, they left me all alone for 8 years. Don't they know how much that hurts? Naruto, by then, knelt on the ground, panting slightly. Oh, of course, they don't. Who am I kidding, anyways? They don't even know my pain. The blonde let a few stray tears fall, painfully slow. And now they ask me on how am I feeling. Not once did I receive a, hello, son. How's your day? Or even a, happy birthday, from either of them. Do they seriously think that I will even accept them as my family? Tears pooled his vision as he was on the verge of breaking down. He heard footsteps coming his way, but he didn't turn around to see who it was. Shish. Warmth enclosed around him as arms wrapped around his body. He knew who was it. That warmth was the only thing he found solace with. A hug from his sister, who had been with him for so long, was the only thing he needed right now. Let it out, Naru, I'm always here for you. Anko soothed his nerves as she hugged him fully, facing him. That was the final nail in the coffin as he obliged, tears flowing endlessly from his cerulean blue eyes. However, his sister was patient and let him cry on her shoulder, something he was truly grateful for. He'd never give up someone so precious as her for anything in the world. Thank you, Onisan. Mount Myoboku, with Jiraiya. Why did you summon me? Asked Jiraiya irritatedly, annoyed by the fact that he couldn't continue his precious research at the hot springs. The elder sage has a prophecy to speak to you, Furusaku answered quickly before Shima, who scowled at him. Rather, Shima countered, then let out a disgruntled grumble afterwards. Why would he summon us if he's going to sleep? She asked in the same irritated tone as Jiraiya, thinking about what she had just cooked by then. Now, don't be mean, the elder yawned a bit, causing the three of them to sigh in relief, knowing they wouldn't wait for 10 hours. Again, where am I? Who are you? He asked groggily, causing their eyebrows to twitch. You're in Mount Myoboku, I'm Shima, and the other two with me is Furusaku and Jiraiya, Shima answered, clearly out of patience. Who? Cut the crap, old toad, Jiraiya snapped. Okay, no need to be hasty, said the elder sage in a playful manner. Ahem, he cleared his throat a bit before starting. Alright, I called you here because I felt the presence of the child of the prophecy. His tone was dead serious, contrary to his tone earlier, surprising everyone present. Is it Kato Namikaze? Jiraiya asked, clearly and obviously forgetting that his student had 2 sons instead of 1. Stupid toad sage, his age is probably getting to him. He's the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, by the way, he added, almost as an afterthought. No, Kato Namikaze is neither the child of the prophecy nor the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. To become a Jinchuriki, you must have the soul of Hibiju. Sooner or later, the Kyuubi's chakra will go back to its rightful owner. Who is its rightful owner? And the child of the prophecy? Kato's brother is the Jinchuriki and the child of the prophecy. The great sage sighed and shifted in his position a tiny bit. He's only 8 and I estimate that he's around high Jonin level, if not low Anbu. Give him 2 years and he'll be on par with Hashirama Senju, Madara Uchiha, and possibly the Sage of the 6 Paths, if he continues his rigorous training. Besides, he obtains the sage's eyes, or more like, will obtain them. Furusaku and Shima went wide-eyed at his words. Are you kidding me? No one could be that powerful. The 2 roads yelled in unison. That's why, Jiraiya, I need you to keep an eye on him. He suffered a lot from the day he was born. His father sent him to the orphanage and literally disowned him after nearly a month, thus kicking him out of the family. The village hates his guts, torturing and mocking him every time he passed by them. He has little to nothing in his heart, with the exception of his sister and sensei, Anko and Orochimaru. He might have others which he cared for, but it seems like he's closing them off. Furusaku raised a non-existent eyebrow at the elder. Jiraiya blinked, suddenly feeling a tide of guilt drowning his entire existence. He's a special child, in all ways possible. Where hate dwells inside of him, he turns it into kindness and that makes his soul good and pure. He doesn't give in to the darkness everyone threw at him. Oh, but if he will, only Kami knows how much destruction will happen. Destruction? Yes. No one in the face of Earth could stand up to him in his prime and years before. He achieved another release that no one had ever seen before. The release is something that even I don't know about, the sage sighed. The brat's secrets was infuriating him, even until now. Furusaku hopped towards the elder. What's his name? He asked as Shima nodded in agreement and curiosity. Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze is the child of the prophecy. 2 weeks later, Hokage's office. So you're telling me that my son is literally a level 7/10 seal master, knows Kenjutsu, can stand toe-to-toe with you and Anko for almost half an hour, but will lose afterwards, has 3 elemental affinities, is adept in using C rank to A rank techniques, and can use 5S rank techniques before he runs out of chakra? Minato asked, disbelief lacing his tone. Orochimaru nodded his head, with Anko vouching for him with a subtle nod. It's true, Minato. You should have seen him perform an A- rank fire technique but turned it into S rank with a wind technique of a lower rank. He's incredible for his age. In fact, Taijutsu is almost flawless. A couple of open holes here and there, but he can cover them up with his brilliant mind rivaling Inara's. His ninjutsu is ridiculous. He can use my techniques like candy, and his arsenal is full of elemental jutsus. His genjutsu, let's say he can use high-ranking ones without breaking a sweat, and he can somehow disrupt his chakra, making it almost impossible to capture him in an illusion. His kenjutsu can give me a run for my money, but I would still win since I have more experience than he does. And his fuinjutsu, as you had heard, he's a level 7 ceiling master. The brat's going to be a monster in the future, Tsunade commented just as the door slammed open without any warning. There revealed an Anbu panting heavily, soaked in sweat. Someone could easily tell that he had been running on his way towards the office. What is it? Minato asked, keeping his cool at the rude event. If it was something trivial, there should be a knock, but with a ninja barging in, not caring about manners, it must be something important. Hokage-sama, the Anbu panted slightly, catching up on his breath. Iwa ninjas are attacking. They targeted the academy, the training grounds, the T&I department, and anywhere else vital in our village. How are our ninjas putting up? Minato asked sharply as he stood up from his desk. Half of our Anbu are out on missions. The rest are equally divided among the T&I. The jail, since we had a hunch that they're planning to make the criminals attack us, the academy, the hospital, and the civilian and shinobi district. Some of the Jonins are helping the civilians into the evacuation areas, and the others are helping the Anbu and are fending the enemies off in front of the gates. The Chunins are evacuating everyone and are on guarding duty. We're losing against them, since they outnumber and took us by surprise. I believe they are headed for your wife, daughter, and sons, Hokage-sama. Shit. Anko swore loudly, voicing out hers and her sensei's thoughts. Naruto's all alone in the training grounds, it won't be long before they find and capture him, she panicked, mutable to form a coherent word. Anko and I are going to Naruto, then help out at the front lines, Orochimaru announced. Tsunade, it's best if you fight and heal the wounded at the same time, preferably in the hospital. Jiraiya, be at the front gates and summon your, toad. It would help in slowing down the enemy. Minato, go find your wife and son. Otherwise they won't come out of this alive. They dispatched onto their respective destinations. Each was panicking, especially Minato, Anko and Orochimaru. Earlier, the last two were snickering at their student's failure of doing a jutsu, and now, they were rushing towards him in blinding speed. Earlier that day, Orochimaru-sensei, do you think that this is too much? He's only 8 years old, Anko commented as they both watched Naruto struggle with an S-rank technique. If he can't do it, it's reasonable. If he can, well, that's an achievement for him, said Orochimaru casually, causing Anko to develop a tick mark on her forehead. So, you're saying, ... Anko began sweetly, contrasting the murderous look in her eyes. Orochimaru gulped in fear and raised his hands in surrender. This is why they say, hell hath no fury as an angry woman, Orochimaru thought ruefully. I didn't mean it that way. He took a step back as Anko glared at him. I only meant that I have full faith towards the brat. He sighed in relief as Anko nodded in understanding and lost her murderous aura. Turning his attention again to the 8-year-old blonde, he smiled slightly at how far his student reached. With Naruto, Kaden. Orashi no Q, fire release. Raging storm of the dragon. Naruto clicked his tongue in annoyance as the fire surrounding his entire body disappeared in a matter of seconds. What am I doing wrong? Naruto asked inside his head. Stability, power, density, containment. Wait a moment, he barely contained the urge to facepalm. I'm such an idiot, he groaned out loud, causing both of his senseis in the treetops to snicker at the realization dawning on his face. Hey, it wasn't funny, he yelled, glaring daggers at both of the snake summoners. Kaden. Orashi no Q, fire release. Raging storm of the dragon. He yelled, finally managing to keep the fire in place all around his body. The fire successfully set the trees aflame and blew them backwards with the amount of chakra he had. Damn, that took lots out of me, he muttered as the fire slowly disappeared, leaving him panting on the ground. He dodged a bottle thrown in his direction by none other than Anko. Alright, that's enough for now, Orochimaru gave him a nod of approval and pride, ushering Anko out of the forest. Naruto only smiled at their retreating forms before continuing his daily training. Now, time for some kenjutsu training. he thought happily, pulling out his twin swords and adjusting them within his hands. Back to the present, with Naruto. I estimate around 30 shinobi, 7 Anbu level ninjas, 4 are high Anbu while the others are solid. 12 Jonins. 10 of them are solid to high Jonin rank while the other 2 are low Jonin level. And 11 Chunins. 9 of them are solid while the other 2 are low-level Chunins. Not good, Naruto thought while calculating the best way to get out alive. I should take out the Chunins and the low Jonins, then possibly fend against the higher ones while waiting for Sen. Wait a second, I can't just keep relying on them. I had to do this on my own and that's final. Rushing towards the unsuspecting Chunins in nearly blinding speed, he knocked out 3 with a kick to their necks and swung his sword, effectively killing one Chunin. He hid a grimace at his actions and threw a punch, hitting a low-level Jonin in the cheek and sending him reeling towards 2 Chunins. He dodged a few kunais whizzing past his head and retaliated with another chakra-infused kick, knocking out another ninja this time. Doden. Doryuden, Earth Dragon Bullet, a Jonin yelled, deciding to add ninjutsu into the play. Naruto managed to use Kawarimi into safety, replacing himself with a log. He reappeared behind 3 Chunins and killed them out with a slice of his blade. The last Chunin got stabbed in the heart as Naruto ran past him towards a Jonin. The Chunins are out, along with a low-level Jonin, thought Naruto as he dodged 10 earth spears, only to have multiple shurikens lodged onto his arm. He then poofied away, revealing that it was a Kage Bunshin. Doden. Doryu Taiga, Mud River, and Anbu somehow caught his hidden chakra signal and sent a wave of mud at the tree he was standing. Naruto smirked at his mistake as he sped through hand signs. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, Water Dragon. Naruto yelled and sent a dragon made out of water at his enemies. Some had time to build an earth wall to shield themselves from the jutsu while others weren't. 4 Jonins down, 8 to go. Naruto mused in thought, somewhat happy as he can hold his own against the enemy shinobi. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto whispered as he made 3 duplicates of himself. Kaden. Zukoku no Jutsu, Cranium Craver. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu, Great Fireball. Fuuten. Renkuden, Vacuum Wind Bullet. Fuuten. Daitopa, Great Breakthrough. With the combined jutsus, an inferno of flames was produced, swallowing everything in its way. The earth, the trees, the rocks, and even the shinobi. Soon, the inferno died down, revealing 5 slightly singed Anbu and a burnt Jonin. The bodies of their comrades were badly burnt, lying motionless and dead on the ground. Why you'll pay for that, demon, an Anbu hissed and sped through hand signs. Doden. Yomi Numa, Underworld Swamp. His teammates got onto their feet and started working on their hand signs as well. Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu, Waterfall Vortex, they yelled in unison. Sweden. Baku Sui Shuha, Great Exploding Water Wave. Naruto exclaimed as he switched himself with a Mizu Bunshin. Is he dead, Ayaniki? The Jonin asked shakily as he tried to stand up but failed, horribly as he might add. No, his elder brother clenched his jaw. Fuuten. Atsugai, Pressurized Wind Bomb. Naruto yelled from a tree, killing another Anbu as he was unable to dodge. An Anbu took note of his position and used the Shunshin to teleport there, stabbing him directly in the ribs. Naruto burst into smoke, a distraction as the Anbu was momentarily blinded. Naruto ran his blade into his opponent's chest and killed him. My last attack, then I'm out of chakra. I'll only be able to fight using Kenjutsu and Taijutsu, Naruto thought and made another Kage Bunshin. Sweden. Baku Sui Shuha, Great Exploding Water Wave. Fuuten. Daitopa, Great Breakthrough, his clone yelled. The combined jutsus turned into ice, as he placed ice chakra in his attacks. The rest of his opponents died, buried under the ice and snow. Just then, 3 squads of Anbu came towards him. With one word in his mind, he concealed himself in the forest trying to buy him some time for his chakra reserves to increase a tiny bit. Shit, with Kushina and Kato. Ka-san, why are they after us? Kato asked as he watched an Iwin flying away, courtesy of Kushina's adamantine chains. It's because we're connected to your father, Kato-kun, answered Kushina, dragging her son to hide behind a tree. She quickly took out a brush and a scroll, writing the appropriate kanjis for a barrier seal. Damn it, Minato, where are you? She thought as she finished the seals and placed an A-rank seal around her and her son. The Iwa Anbu squad outside glared at the barrier and its inhabitants. They fired an earth jutsu after another, making Kushina grit her teeth and supply more chakra onto the barrier. It's no use, the barrier's going to break. Doden. Doryuden, Earth Release, Earth Dragon Bullet. Kushina didn't have time to dodge as the jutsu collided with her, sending her flying through the air, and eventually hit a nearby tree. Ka-san. Kato, run, thought Kushina desperately, placing a hand over her stomach, feeling her daughter kick inside her. I'm sorry. Minato, Mishi, Kato. Naruto. I'm sorry for not being a great mother to you. She dropped to the ground with a thud, a trail of blood dripping from her mouth. She closed her eyes with a small smile, embracing the darkness, which gently welcomed her into the abyss of nothingness. With Kato, Ka-san, let me go, he screamed, but the Iwa ninjas only laughed at him. He growled lowly, allowing his anger to cloud his actions and thinking abilities. A coat of red chakra surrounded his entire body. 2 tails sprouted from behind him, his whisker marks darkening, and his canines sharpening, turning into fangs of a fox. He was positioned on all fours, ready to pounce and strike like a hungry predator. Kato growled, you'll pay for that. Alas, the container of the 9 tails chakra went wild, losing control over his actions at the sight of his fallen mother. 5. Get the blasted 4th son. An Iwa Anbu ordered, to which 3 other Anbu followed his command, turning to grab Naruto, who disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Flaring their chakra to detect where the boy was, they turned towards the direction and rushed at blinding speed. They caught up to him eventually, blocking all of the escape routes. Naruto cursed inwardly, glaring at all the Anbu in front of him. He took out his twin swords and adjusted them within his hands, intent on escaping out alive. One Anbu rushed at him with a kunai in his hand, engaging him in a brutal display of taijutsu. Naruto countered him with his own style, but it was hard to fight while dodging a lot of attacks given to him by the other Anbu. His eyes slightly widened as his opponents finished hand signs. Doden. Doryuden, Earth Style. Earth Dragon Bullet. 3 Anbu yelled in unison, launching chunks of the earth at him. Given no time to dodge, he chose to soften the attack and placed his swords in an X position, hoping that it wouldn't give him too many injuries. Suddenly, the attack seemed to be slower and he found himself saying 2 words, a technique that he hadn't heard of. Shinra Tensai. The Anbu were thrown backwards by a massive, powerful force, hitting most of the trees on the solid ground. Most of them were unconscious, while others were dead at the attack. Naruto blinked at his actions, but quickly stifled a scream as his eyes started to stain. Blood adorned his hand as he covered his eyes, temporarily blind to his surroundings. Naruto, a feminine voice yelled, filled with worry and concern. The familiar warmth of a pair of hands. Anko ne, he thought as he succumbed to the darkness. With Kato and Kushina, you bastards, I will kill you all, screamed an overly furious Kato. Red-orange chakras swirled all around him, his whisker marks darkening, and his canines sharpening until they looked like a fox's. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki? An Iwa nin asked in disbelief. Shit, we've gotta get out of here. A wave of violent chakras sliced through his body and he fell to the ground, beheaded. The others watched the pissed-off boy growl at them before going in for the kill. Doden. Doryuheki, Earth Style. Earth Wall, a few yelled, but the hardened soil did nothing to spare their lives as the Hokage's sun clawed right through their stomachs and heart. Some had already pissed and shitted themselves in fear, knowing that fighting a pissed-off Jinchuriki wasn't a good thing at all, unless you're suicidal. Bijudama, Tailed Beast Ball. A large, gray chakra ball compressed in the Kyuubified Kato's mouth until it was sent towards the enemy shinobi's direction. The pressure coming from the chakra caused the ground to rip apart, the grass and trees uprooting themselves from the ground. It was a clear message to the Iwa shinobi, all of their deaths were inevitable. 3 days later, hospital. Sunlight streamed through the windows as he groggily woke up. He stretched slightly, attempting to decrease the strain and soreness of his muscles. His throat ached for water, but he settled on taking a bath for the moment. Geez, he had this slight, bad smell that would probably send anyone away from him. He splashed his face with water in order to relieve his sleepiness. His face literally screamed surprise at the sight of his eyes. They were dark purple in color, with rings circling around. The Rinnegan, the eyes of the Sage of the Six Paths, stared back at him, waiting to be used for his own purposes. How did this happen? He thought in complete shock, forgetting about the bath and water by then. Wait a moment, Shinra Tensei. Could it be that I unlocked it when I was in a near-death experience? He wondered, blinking a bit as his eyes started to stain. Forcing the chakra in his eyes to recede, they turned into their usual, cerulean blue color. Well, I gotta have that bath, he thought as he stepped in the bathtub. With Anko, the purple-haired woman entered her younger brother's room, a bowl of ramen, a glass of water, and a vase full of white lilies in a tray. She almost screamed in surprise at the sight of an empty bed before her. Dully noting the faint sounds of the water in the bathroom, she sighed and sat down on the chair beside the bed, carefully placing the tray on the table. Moments later, the bathroom door burst open, revealing the blonde boy, a towel wrapping his body. Innocence was clearly shown on his face as Anko stared at him blankly. "Oh, hi, Anko-ne, how are you? How long was I out, anyways?" he asked, immediately taking note of the red dusting the woman's cheeks. He frowned as his sister's face turned completely bright red. Hey, are you okay, Nei-chan? He panicked. Are you sick? Does anything hurt? What happened? He fired another set of questions at the purple-haired woman, who finally managed to calm herself down. Please put some sea clothes on, Tuto. Okay, he left with a still confused face. Did I do something wrong? He wondered as he opened the door to the bathroom and shut it softly. Anko buried her face with her hands, groaning. "Oh, geez, his innocence is going to be the death of me someday," she mumbled under her breath. "I almost regret not letting Kakashi steal his innocence. No way am I going to allow that," she exclaimed in her mind, her overprotective side showing. The previous events seemed to be long forgotten. With Minato, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru and Kato. "How's Kushina, Tsunade?" the fourth Hokage shakily asked as the blonde Sannin went out of the room, blood staining her gloves. "Is she okay? What about Mishi? Mom's gonna be okay, right, Granny Tsunade?" Kato asked tearfully. "Pervy Sage? Orochi Gigi? Dad?" he questioned, to which his father gave him a ruffle on his head. Tsunade took a deep breath before exhaling it. "Okay, what do you want first, the good news or the bad news?" Minato didn't hesitate to answer that one. "Good," he simply said, awaiting the next words that may change his whole life upside down. Kushina and Mishi survived the attack. The Hokage released the breath he didn't know he held in. He gestured for the renowned medic to continue, which she gladly did. "The attack wasn't as fatal as I thought, although Kushina would have to be careful in moving for the next 3 months, which says, no training or fighting allowed. She would have lost an arm, but thankfully, I was able to save it, but it would be sore by the time she wakes up," said Tsunade. "Now on for the bad news." "What is it?" Orochimaru queried. "Mishi had to be born premature," she sighed. "There were no problems, except for the fact that Mishi has to be very careful in using her chakra. Her tenketsus were small, barely even visible to the Byakugan. Chances say that she can't even become a kunoichi. Is there anything we can do?" asked Minato in a somehow desperate tone. There is." Tsunade paused for a dramatic effect. "We have to seal some of the Kyuubi's chakra into her, so that it would change her tenketsus into normal ones and increase her chances of becoming a ninja." "The Kyuubi's chakra? So I'll have to extract some from Kato." "No, that wouldn't do, Minato," Jiraiya intervened before the blonde could continue. "If you extract a Biju's chakra from someone who doesn't have the said Biju's soul, or in simple terms, isn't a Jinchuriki, the chakra will only go to waste and return to the Biju's soul. So, we have to get it from him? Since we don't have any other choice, it's a yes." July 18 x 777. "I woke up early this day, after all. I finally get to get out of this bland hospital. I'm tired of seeing the white walls, white ceiling, white bed, and everything is color white. Sometimes, I think that I'm already in heaven." Note to self, in addition to my dislikes, I hate hospitals. Anko Ne promised to treat me to Ichiraku's ramen if I cooked dango later at dinner. She said she loved my cooking, 'cause it's perfect, as she dubs it. Maybe learning how to cook is the best thing I knew. Ibiki Ni-san visited me today. He promised that I could help him in the T&I department, along with Anko Ne. I couldn't wait to get out of this whiteness, it's boring. Plus, the doctors and nurses here hate my guts. One time, they even tried to poison me, but luckily, I had an antidote in one of my storage seals. Anko Ne and Ibiki Ni were furious when I told them. They even tried to go on a rampage. Which didn't happen, Fortu. There was a large blot of ink on the paper, the next words expressing his emotions. His quill scribbled on the paper angrily, a few tears leaking from his eyes as they landed on the paper and messed up with his writing. Luckily, it was still legible. I hate them all. Haven't they done enough? After all of what they made me endure, they still have the nerve to actually demand something from me? Honestly, I don't know that they would even fall this low. They asked me if I would give them my Biju's chakra, and I'm pretty sure the Kyuubi doesn't like having his chakra spread in the village and in different people. Damn my kind heart. I should hate them but I can't. I'm just disappointed. It's like there's something blocking me from falling in the darkness, but I'm grateful for that. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm tired of living in this cruel world. I hope someone could save me from falling in this abyss of darkness that failed to conquer me whole. See you tomorrow, Naruto. The blonde sighed and shut his eyes as he landed on the mattress. Why is the world so cruel to him? Earlier that day, training grounds number 40. Naruto sighed as the snake Sanin relayed the information into him. Anko was fuming, her hair flying behind her as a dark aura, in a shape of a snake with blood-red eyes, appeared around her. Those bastards. I'm gutting them. Out, one by one. And kill them. In the most painful way. She growled lowly, her killing intent spreading across the forest. The squad of Anbu that was tailing them flinched and shook in fright. Even the hidden root Anbu did. They never had seen Anko so angry, and coupled with her sadistic nature, they could only pray for the person she was furious with to survive. Minato and Jiraiya cringed from above the tree, praying to Kami for mercy on their souls. A bitter laugh escaped the boy's lips as he looked up to the sky. I wonder what's next, Naruto mused in thought, confusing everyone present. What's next? What's that supposed to mean? First, they both disown me and send me to the orphanage. Second, they rip me of my birthright and clan. Third, they leave me in the villager's hand who did nothing but abuse me physically and mentally. Fourth, they neglect me for 8 damn years. And now this? He chuckled darkly. Naruto looked up to a tree. The tree where his father and the toad sage were present. Well, congratulations, father, he said with a mocking sneer. You've been successful in making my life a living hell. Father? Could it be that? He is. He looks like him. Is he the fourth's other son? Why isn't he living with them, though? Discreet whispers came from the Anbu themselves, unaware that the blonde 8-year-old could hear everything they said. Naruto gave him a deathly glare with a sickening sweet smile that crushed his father's hopes of reconnecting with his son again. Damn my kind heart, he thought. Guess we'll meet tomorrow at noon, Tusan. Where am I? He wondered as he floated in the darkness. Black greeted his eyes every time he looked around. Cold liquid splashed against his back as the currents led him somewhere. Ah, so my jailer has finally decided to see me? A cold voice, with no hint of warmth whatsoever, resounded within his ears. I must admit, you're more interesting than any other Jinchuriki. No one had ever went through that and stayed sane. You're the Kyuubi, aren't you? Asked Naruto out of nowhere. Is my mindscape always like this? Not that I'm complaining, it's nice and comfortable. Did you call the darkness comfortable? Interest laced the fox's tone. I just did. Not like I hate sunlight, but I prefer to stick to the shadows, said Naruto. And wow, I expected you to yell at me and tell all that dislike hate loathe crap, he commented, and somehow he felt that the Kyuubi was offended. Hey, I'm not that evil, you blonde brat. The fox growled lowly. Thought so, Naruto then mumbled. If you were evil, then you could have gotten your way out of the cage and proclaimed that you'd destroy the whole world or get revenge against Konoha or something. I heard that. Okay, sheesh, no need to get your panties in a twist. Wait a moment, are you a boy or a girl? What's your name? Naruto asked eagerly, feeling the fox's annoyance grow larger, as well as his interest. You're a strange kid. All my previous Jinchurikis shouted at me for being the main reason why they were hated and they had to hide their real identity. No one had ever asked me my name. So what's your name again? Are you a he or a she? Like I would tell you my name, Brat. You would if you don't want me to call you Furball, or Fluffball, or maybe Fuzzball. Or maybe even Mr. Foxy or Mr. Fluffy. Which one is better? Naruto asked cheekily. Fine, you win. My name's Kurama. I'm a he, don't get it wrong. Kurama, huh? It's a cute name, I suppose. Can I see you and give you a hug? No, I was just kidding, you take things too seriously. Oh, what's this, Kurama? You're associating with our Jinchuriki? Another voice asked, amusement dancing in his tone. Never knew you'd become a softie, Otutu. Oto, are you the Jubi? Naruto wondered, confused. I don't remember anyone sealing you inside of me, though. Idiot, you were just a baby back then. The Kyuubi and Jubi growled in unison. I may be just a baby, the blonde stressed the just. But I have photographic memory. I remember my biological father sending us to a safe house, followed by my biological mother. After that, I could remember the sounds of my twin crying, until the fourth came and teleported us towards the place where Kura-chan, the Jubi, chuckled at the nickname whilst the Kyuubi growled. Was sealed. Your soul and 2 tails of your chakra was placed on me, while the rest is in my twin, right? Well, I guess you do have photographic memory, the Jubi mused. And, I also have a question to ask. Why aren't you uncomfortable when talking to us? Do I have a reason to? Or I'm the cause of your suffering. Why aren't you mad at me? The Kyuubi added. Not like you wanted to be ripped out of the seal and destroy Konoha in the first place. The masked man just used you, so, who am I to get angry for something you didn't willingly do? You're a weird kid, the Kyuubi commented. Hey, weirdos are negative. Use unique instead, Mr. Fluffy. Damn, the Jubi coughed. Unique brat, there. Now that I said it, leave me alone Onee-san. Kurama yelled. So you're female, Jubi-san? Naruto asked. Yes. And you can call me Shia, Naruto-kun, said the Jubi. Now that you know me, you could access the abilities of all the 9 bijus, or in short, my abilities. Naruto blinked. Don't worry, I'll train you every day in your mindscape as you had gained my trust and respect. Naruto swore he felt the sadistic side of the Jubi come out. But, prepare for hell, Naruto-kun. Blinding light shot through his eyes and he squeezed them shut, his image in the dark mindscape fading slowly until it completely disappeared. Hospital. He groaned as the sharp, searing pain jolted him awake. His head pounded endlessly, the massive headache was killing him. He's waking up. Blurry images danced before his cerulean blue eyes. He slowly tried to sit up, but got pushed back down. He blinked, wishing for the headache to stop. Well, extracting the Biju's chakra isn't the best thing that could have happened to a Jinchuriki, Kit, the Kyuubi commented. Huh? Kurama-san? Is that you? Who else would it be? Shia-ne-chan, replied the blonde, or more like answered it just to annoy the fox. Kurama grunted and went back to his nap like always. Naruto, how are you feeling? Naruto blinked once, then nursed his head, groaning in pain. My head hurts like hell. I hear 1,000 bells ringing at the same time, and on top of that, I had the weirdest dream ever, Anko-ne. Anko smiled at him while caressing his hair. You've been out for 3 hours, and I was worried like hell, you blonde gaki. Hey, stop calling me a brat, Ne-chan. So, said Anko, stressing out the word, completely ignoring what Naruto had just said. What did you dream of? Naruto frowned dramatically. I dreamt that you and Kashi ni. What's the word? It's on the tip of my tongue, aha. I dreamt that you and Kashi ni kissed, whatever that means. It's weird and creepy, right? Asked Naruto, not realizing the effects of what he had said. Well, it was true as he dreamt about that before he had went to his mindscape. He didn't know exactly what happened, but he remembered vague pieces of the memory. Anko turned scarlet, her face rivaling the color of a tomato. She buried her face in her hands again, mentally cursing the blonde in front of her. Naruto panicked as he saw her bright red face. Anko-ne? Naruto asked frantically. You're not sick, right? What's wrong? What happened? I told you, he's an innocent soul, the snake Sanin sighed, but internally smirking at the face of his apprentice. Ooh, so that means that I. The sickening sound of the result of a chakra-infused punch was heard. "There's no way that I'm allowing you to turn another poor kid into a pervert, idiot," yelled Tsunade, raising a fist to press her words further. Hi, what's a pervert anyways? Naruto wondered and thought. A few orange question marks flying, or rather, hovering from his head. Anko ne? He's really clueless. You did well in keeping his innocence safe. Kushina chirped happily. Now I have to keep Kato's too. Kushina, the slug princess literally screamed. You're supposed to be resting, not blabbing happily and standing like it's just a normal day today. Go rest in your room, young lady. Fortunately, all of them remembered to cover their ears before the renowned medic yelled at the red-headed Uzumaki. Kushina whined and pouted childishly, as expected of an Uzumaki, but gave in to the sharp, stern, and plain scary look of the Senju medic. Fine, she sighed defeatedly, a gloomy aura surrounding her. Typical Uzumakis. Shiane? Yeah, just saying, oh Tuto. At night, summon yourself in your mindscape, and we'll start training you there. Okay. Naruto and Anko's home. Take it easy. You can't train at the state you're currently in. The owner of the said house berated the younger blonde in front of her. Rest. Now. No exceptions, no training, no buts. Can I meditate? Well, the purple-haired woman tapped her chin in thought. It is a form of resting, so it's a yes. Now, shoo, go meditate in your room as I have to cook dinner. It's onigiri by the way. Meanie, Naruto whispered under his breath. Anko snapped her head towards him, her eyes narrowing. What was that, huh, Gaki? Nothing, got to go now. See you for dinner, Anko ne. Good. Naruto's room. Good. Now meditate and send yourself in your mindscape. Hi. The real world dissolved into nothingness. The blonde felt himself swirling madly until he found himself standing in a sewer, specifically in front of two cages, one belonging to the Kyuubi and the other the Jubi. Is every Jinchuriki's mindscape always like this? He wondered out loud. I'm soaking wet right now. Now, rip off the two seals, starting with mine, the Jubi told the blonde. Oh, right, you need a lift as you are too short to reach the cage, she added, grinning as Naruto visibly deflated and sulked in a corner. The sound of a paper ripping into two alerted Kurama as he jolted awake, hitting his cage in the process. Ouch. He groaned a bit, using 3 of his tails to nurse his head. Thank you. Now, do it to Kurama, oh Tuto, Shia instructed and the blonde happily obliged. Kurama grinned as the cage disappeared and stretched his limbs. Ah, that felt so good. Guess you're not as bad as I originally thought, Gaki, the 9-tailed fox smirked. Naruto, can you please change your mindscape into something more? Comfortable? The 10 tails asked meekly, glaring at the water which was soaking her fur wet. Okay, but how? The blonde asked. Imagine what scenery do you want, and focus your chakra onto that picture. Naruto closed his eyes and envisioned a field, a training ground, a cabin, and 2 comfortable caves for the both of his new friends. He also envisioned a small forest on one of the clearings, similar to the Forest of Death, his favorite place. Whoa, thanks for the cave, brat. Kurama immediately dove in for his new shelter and promptly fell asleep. He snored lightly, causing a large drop of sweat to form the other inhabitant of the blonde's mindscape and the blonde himself. Is Kurani always like this? Asked Naruto. He seems, too lazy. And is on his hibernation period. It's not even winter. He trailed off as the Jubi burst into a fit of laughter. Yeah, he's always like this. He's a lazy, pompous bastard. Don't imitate his actions, kay? Shia ne, what's bastard? The blonde asked innocently. The Jubi paled at the thought of taking the boy's innocence away, but ignored it. Chuckling to herself, she finally announced what she wanted to say earlier. Now, let the training begin. Shia stumbled upon her words but luckily, Naruto didn't question the obvious slip-up. Torture. Oh no, he thought, slightly shivering at the foreboding events. Anko was worried. The blonde brat hadn't went down for dinner, and it was 7:30 p.m. already. Had he ignored her warning and trained outside? She's hooked her head and practically marched up the stairs. She opened the door to his bedroom in a not-so-gentle manner. There she found him meditating in the middle of his bed, his posture calm and relaxed, with a small smile gracing his lips. All in all, he seemed so at peace that Anko forgot what she was going to do. Naruto, it's time for dinner, she tried to alert him calmly. Naruto, get your ass downstairs. Losing her composure, she yelled, and that shocked the blonde so much that he actually sprung up from his position and fell off the bed with an oof coming from his mouth. Itai, that hurt, Anko ne, he grumbled under his breath. Okay, now that I've got your attention, said Anko with a small, too sweet to be true smile. Let's eat dinner downstairs. Hi, Ne-chan, he exclaimed frantically. Let's just say that the dinner this night was a scary affair for our favorite blonde. Anko ne was really scary last night, Naruto thought, shuddering slightly. Coupled with Shia ne too. I'd like to say that you're around high Anbu with my help, but a solid Anbu at worst cases. You've progressed much quickly in using your sand, the perfect defense, as it was called. We'll continue with that and start off with flexibility and taijutsu later. The Jubi ignored his remark and elaborated the results of his training. Okay, sensei. Single quote. Now, have fun. Kurama chirped happily. Why do I have a feeling that you're up to something, Ni-san? Just get your ass up for training already, brat. I was just kidding. Doden. Yomi Numa. Earth release. Swamp of the Underworld. Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu, water release, great waterfall technique. Fuuden. Daitopa, wind release, great breakthrough. Hyeten. Haru Moko, ice release, piercing dragon fierce tiger. 4 clones yelled from one side of the training grounds. A blizzard was literally originated from the mud swamp, courtesy of his first jutsu. Naruto idly wondered if he could turn the season into winter in Konoha. It'd be nice to have a break from the heat every time he trained. Kaden. Karyu Enden, fire release, fire dragon flame bullet. Fuuden. Renkuden, Widden release, drilling wind bullet. Raiden. Jabashi, lightning release, electromagnetic murder. Lava release, gunshot. A tornado of fire was formed, making the blonde sweat slightly. More reasons to try and turn Konoha's season into winter, he thought, jumping back from the source of the blazing heat. Time to meditate. Lunch, 2 hours later. What are you doing? Anko wondered as she finally found the brat she had been looking for. For about 2 hours. Damn, Naruto's skill in hiding was quite impressive. I'm trying to find a way to turn the season here into winter, he deadpanned, earning a sweat drop from her older sister. Really? She asked, an incredulous look adorning her face. And why do you want to do that? It's searing hot, Ne-chan, the blonde pouted. I want to experience the cold for even once. And, oh, shit. She cursed, then suddenly placed her hands on her mouth. Did I just, I'm as good as fucked, she grumbled to herself as Naruto tilted his head slightly to the right. What's, shit? Naruto asked innocently. And what's wrong? I, forgot the mission that my team I were supposed to take today. Be back at 7, and don't forget to eat and, I'll just go now. A purple blur, and the woman was gone as quickly as she came. He mumbled. Oi, brat, go eat something, Kurama said suddenly. With that unexpected statement, Naruto almost yelled in fright but calmed down afterwards. What's up with the random question, Ni-san? He asked once appearing in his mindscape. Both Bijus were resting on the field, Kurama on one cave while Shia on the plain grassy field. He's right, you know, the Jubi added, yawning slightly. Did you just? I think she did. What's going on here? Naruto yelled in his mindscape, making the 2 Bijus wince at the loudness of his voice. Shia ne, you just said that trait of an Uzumaki, you know. It was an accident. The Jubi roared in embarrassment, her cheeks dusted with a light shade of pink. Her 10 tails were swinging around, trying to shut the boy up. It is not. Naruto retorted, panicking as he jumped away from the tails. What the hell happened to you, Ne-chan? Kurama yelled, earning a bottle aimed for his head. He blinked and rubbed his forehead which now had a bump. What the foo? No cursing. Shia roared, throwing another bottle at him. Anything you want to. She stopped short, abruptly narrowing her eyes in the boy's mindscape. Naruto-kun, something's wrong here. I sense your father's and godfather's presence. And by the looks of it, they're trying to hide something, the Jubi frowned and thought. I feel them too, Kurama grunted at the fresh bumps on his furry head. Naruto's sweat dropped at the mercurial argument, shaking his head ever so slowly. Spy on them. It'd be a good practice for stealth. Shia's eyes sparkled with mischief, very akin to her younger brother. Follow them, Kit. I also want to know what they're discussing, Kurama vouched, urging him out of his mindscape. Oh, K? The large drop of sweat on his forehead got bigger, if that was even possible. Exiting his mindscape, he directed his chakra to find his father and his godfather. As if they actually are, he thought with slight disgust and hatred. He felt their chakra disappear from the training ground he was in. Could it be a Shunshin or the Hirishin? Carefully searching, he finally found them inside his biological father's compound. Without wasting a second, he shot like a beacon towards his destination and used a Shunshin to go there in less than a minute. Namikaze compound. It's the only way. The blonde knew that spying was wrong, but he just couldn't help it, not with both of his bijus vouching for him. Curiosity always won, no matter the situation. It was one of the things that he should improve. He carefully masked his chakra that even the most trained sensor couldn't detect him, and sneakily hid from their sight. Choosing to use a limbo technique, he sat on a chair with no one noticing him. I can't give up Kushina or Kato or Mishi to the cloud, sensei. Naruto rose an eyebrow at the statement. Just what exactly is going on? So you're implying that you'd let them get the Hyuga clan head and experiment on him? Jiraiya lost control over his temper and practically yelled at his student. There has to be another way. Minato yelled desperately. Give Kushina or Kato. That's the most logical opinion. I can't lose either of them. Then give Naruto instead, Jiraiya snapped back. The said boy's eyes widened. Would his biological father treat him like some trash and shove him away again? Aye. Choose between 4 of these choices. 1. Proclaim war against the cloud and risk the village, your family, your shinobi, your villagers' lives, everything. 2. Do absolutely nothing and let the cloud get their way on the Byakugan. 3. Hand Kushina, Kato and Mishi over them. Or 4. Give Naruto to them and problem solved. He's a Jinchuriki, and you know how Jinchurikis are treated at that place. Minato swallowed the lump in his throat. Naruto felt betrayal and agony wash over his entire being at the next few words. Deep inside, his heart break into 2 fragile pieces, causing his entire world to crumble into nothing but dust. Emotions. Sure, he had them at first, but now, he didn't know what he felt. Everything was blank, he didn't feel anything, nor did he remember anything. He only knew that the sentence caused his whole world to break down. I choose option 4. Waterfall. Tears cascaded over his cheeks as he sobbed uncontrollably, hiding behind a waterfall. The cave itself had multiple dents, holes, and debris all over it. The source? The blonde who was currently inhabiting the place. He knew he shouldn't have given them another chance. All they did was break his trust, mentally kill him again and again, and turn him into an emotional wreck. His eyes were bloodshot from crying. What time it was, he didn't know. He shunshined towards his sister's house, whose owner was yelling and scolding him for being out so late. He couldn't process what he said and abruptly fell unconscious in his sister's arms. Back at his mind, his 2 senseis, siblings and friends at the same time couldn't help but to feel pity at the blonde, and resentment at the cause of his suffering. Deep inside, they knew that all they need to do was to stop the blonde's pain before it escalated and soon, turn him into what they feared the most, a monster derived from his anguish. July 23, X777. They lost their second chance. I trusted them again, and now they throw it aside. I'm done with this village, this hate, this pain. I'm leaving tomorrow, and I hope no one will ever find me again until I return. Shia Nei-chan told me to travel to the villages. She said that it'd be helpful experience to me, as I'd see the hidden villages. I could also learn a lot about the shinobi world, its history, new techniques, and such. I may also stumble upon the other Jinchuriki and hopefully, form new bonds. She also told me about the opposing villages hidden to all eyes. Where the light also shines, darkness also comes to take its rightful place. The place where adults and children alike live in war. Fortunately, all wars had stopped as it threatened the villagers' well-being and sanity. 2 clans exists in one village, Taiyo and Tasuki, the Sun and Moon clans. The village had been separated into 2 parts, one being the Yami and the other Hikari. The village itself is called Gekokagor no Sato, or the village hidden in the moonlight. I'm going there after I train and successfully travel the world. Goodbye. Naruto. The 10-year-old blonde dipped his quill on the ink bottle, keeping his eyes on the clock, which had shown 12:03 a.m. in bold, dark blue letters. He sighed as his cerulean blue orbs swept to his backpack, full of scrolls, weaponry, clothes, food, and other survival necessities. He placed his black leather journal, ink bottle, and quill in one of the pockets, careful not to make a sound that would wake his sister up. Guilt flooded over his senses, but he shoved it away. He sneaked towards his sister's room and carefully placed the folded letter on the dresser. He smiled sadly at Anko one last time before disappearing in a swirl of ice. Morning. Tears fell down from her eyes as her sobs ricocheted throughout the entire room. She let out an anguished cry and fell on her knees, her hands desperately clutching the piece of paper that only sent desperation and pain through her veins. Anko, nay, I'm sorry, I really am. But I can't stand this place much longer. I need to take a break from this hellhole. I can't tell you where I went as it is a secret and will forever remain to be. I will travel from place to place so that the Anbu won't find me. I owe you an explanation due to my behavior on the last few weeks. I'm not only the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, but I'm the Jubi's too. It all happened when I was 2. I can't tell you any more details, because I'm a secretive bastard. What does this word even mean? Once again, I apologize. I'm sorry, Nei-chan. Anko Nei, go to my room and you'll find a present that I bought you yesterday, along with a letter. Please read it, don't get upset, and continue living your life as the strong woman you are. Naruto. Naruto. No. This has to be some prank, isn't it? Come be back here, tell me it's all AP prank and why you're at H home. Please. Single quote. But there was nothing, neither knocks at the door nor the cheerful voice of her younger brother. Days and weeks passed by, and soon months followed. The depressed mood of the purple-haired increased that she didn't manage to go out anymore. She found the neatly wrapped package in his brother's room, a gift containing an amethyst locket. Inside was a picture of her and Naruto, reminding her of the days when he was still present. Anko Nei, there's a reason behind my absence. Even if I didn't go away from the village, the oh-so-precious Hokage will send me to the cloud. Obviously, I mean nothing to him and he's planning to use me as some tool against the cloud. I'm pretty sure that he'd alert you about this, anyways. Naruto. Quote. Midnight, with Naruto. I packed everything I needed. Naruto thought quietly as he sped past the gates and the sleeping guards. Where do you think we should go first? He asked in his head. Kiri, was Shia's immediate reply. Huh? Why? Kurama answered instead. Think of it. Iwa hates Konoha with everything they have, so that village is off the list. Kumo, I'm pretty sure you don't want to be a prisoner there, Suna, they're allies with Konoha, so they'll give away your location. Konoha, you won't go back, right? So the only village that is included in the elemental nations left is Kiri, the fox explained. Also, they have pretty good swordsmen there, so you'll be able to escalate in Kenjutsu. Another plus is that the current Mizukage is a Jinchuriki and some of the remaining Uzumakis live there. Ah, I get it now, Ni-san, replied Naruto happily as he hopped from a tree branch to another branch. His eyes suddenly narrowed as he sensed a foreign ninja heading his way but sighed in relief as the ninja switched directions. Let's just hope that they will realize your absence, Kurama scoffed in thought, nearly growling. Although I highly doubt your family, so it's only Anko, Kakashi, Orochimaru, and the others who cared for you would acknowledge your absence. Yeah, Shia agreed, telling the blonde to go left. Be sure to camp 2 hours after this, and meet us in your mindscape after making a barrier, she reminded. I got it, Nei-chan, you repeated that like 10 times. Shia yawned and smiled innocently. I recall mentioning that only 7 times. Naruto's eyes twitched as he ignored the comment and turned a sharp corner to the left. He grumbled. Was that correction really necessary? The reply was cheerful, too cheerful for his and the fox's taste. Yeah, it was Tilda. The next morning, Hokage's office. What do you mean he's gone? The fourth blatantly screamed at the purple-haired woman in front of him. Anko, is better be a sick joke or a prank, he calmed down and sighed. Why do you care? The snake Anbu snapped, surprising everyone present in the office, which includes the 3 Sannin, Kushina, Minato, and their children. Mishi was wailing slightly and Kato was scared at the scream of his father, and lastly, Anko. What do you ever mean? Kushina's temper flared, like most Uzumaki's, and glared at her with such anger. That doesn't make any sense. What I'm saying is that, Anko smiled sweetly, too sweetly for everyone's opinion. If he didn't leave, you fucking bastards would send him to the fucking cloud like a fucking object at your disposal, anyways. That's why I'm happy that he's gone so that he won't get to deal with your bullshit anymore. Minato flinched slightly and looked down, with Jiraiya flabbergasted behind him. How did you know about that? He breathed out. Tell you what, the person whom you're trying to send away knew everything you're planning, the snake's apprentice hissed and disappeared in a shunshin. I knew I shouldn't have accepted that meeting. The blonde Hokage sighed and ran his hands through his hair. Flashback. Greetings, Hokage Dono. Likewise, Raikage Dono, the blonde had greeted warmly, managing to mask the slight dislike in his tone. Shall we discuss the treaty in my office? He asked. Of course, the Raikage answered back, and for some reason, he was acting strange. He kept glancing at his Anbu over his shoulder when he thought that the blonde Hokage wasn't looking. Is there anything wrong? Minato had asked, confused at the repeated action. Nothing, Hokage Dono. I'm just worried for my brother, the Raikage answered with a bit of nervousness in his voice. Minato wasn't convinced but let the matter go, decided not to pursue it. Of course, shall we continue? He asked, receiving a subtle nod in reply. Roughly the same time, Hyuga compound. Hyuga Hinata was practicing her growing skill in her clan's widely known Jukin, basically to prove her father wrong and tell him that she wasn't weak, when someone clamped their hand on her mouth. She tried giving a Jukin strike on the man's arm but somehow ended up inside a sack. The Kumo Nin was finally able to breathe in properly. He expanded the range of his senses and felt relieved that there was no one near them. Almost instantly, he sped past the Hyuga compound's gate and signaled to a shadow clone of another Anbu that the work was gone. I should get her far from here, he murmured to himself at first but narrowly dodged a kunai. His green eyes narrowed, as he pulled out a kunai of his own. Konoha ninjas, they're after me. Shit, was all he can think of. Kumo-san, please hand the Hyuga clan's heiress back before we decided to use drastic measures, a falcon-masked Anbu simply stated while reading his katana. Over my dead body, he spat before attempting to make a run for it. Back at the Hokage's office. Raikage-san, what is the meaning of this? Minato asked as a few Kumo Anbu showed up with unconscious Konoha Anbu. He gritted his teeth and realization dawned on him. You're planning another attempt of kidnapping, aren't you? Good, looks like you caught on easily. With Naruto. It's so misty in here, he thought out loud. Well, it's called the Hidden Mist Village for a reason, he reminded himself, slightly chuckling. Yeah, aren't you tired? Kurama asked as the blonde slightly wavered in his position. Go to sleep, you blonde brat. I agree with Otuto in here, said Shia. Fix up a tent and. Oh okay. Single quote. There's a kid outside. He heard muffled voices alert the others. He passed out without hearing the worried questions of his bijus, hitting the ground due to exhaustion. Get him to Mizukage-sama. Mizukage's office. Naruto slightly squirmed, groggily opening his eyes. The unfamiliar light blue ceiling stared back at him, along with the sunlight, causing him to blink a bit. Wah, what happened, Ni-san, Ne-chan? You fainted from exhaustion, but don't worry, you're in good hands right now. Calm down, Shia gently told him. I see you're awake now, said a woman softly, obviously a medic nin. Relax in here, kid, I'll just call Mizukage-sama. She smiled slightly before getting up from her position and going outside the room to call her cage. Naruto groaned a bit as a migraine started. Ne-chan, can you make my headache stop? He asked, rubbing his temples a bit. Sure thing, Shia replied, and almost immediately, the pain began to gradually fade. Thanks, Ne-chan. Hello, a boy, with sandy hair and violet eyes, greeted him warmly. I'm Yagura, what is your name? Naruto had to swallow the lump in his throat. Ryu. That's a lie, and we all know that. Those piercing violet eyes narrowed in suspicion. Fine, the blonde shifted uncomfortably in the white bed. I'm Naruto. He swallowed the lump in his throat again. Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki Namikaze? Just Uzumaki, I'm disowned by my parents. Naruto trailed off, knowing where the conversation is leading. Please don't send me back to Konoha, he pleaded. Kit, calm down. Breathe, Kurama told him. Let me speak to him and his Biju. Pull everyone to your mindscape. Naruto's eyes went clouded for a moment, making Yagura express a face of confusion. Not long after, everyone got pulled into Naruto's mindscape, shocking everyone present. Naruto's mindscape. It was pitch black. Black was all you could see in all directions, making the place look like a void of darkness. Then, 5 figures emerged from the sea of darkness. 2 figures were on the left. One was Yagura, sitting on top of the three-tailed turtle, Isobu. Both Jinchuriki and Biju were confused and shocked, although the giant turtle had an idea where they are right now. On their opposite side, Kurama was grinning somehow maniacally, along with a smirking 10-tailed dragon. Naruto sat on top of his, Nei-chan's, head, looking alarmed and confused to the point that both of his Bijus feel like laughing. What the fuck happened? Yagura cursed lowly, making the one of the turtle's tails hit him in the head, with an angry remark of, language. This is the umpteenth time that I heard that word. What does that mean? Asked Naruto, still sporting a confused expression. Ehehehe, Kurama laughed nervously. Well, Oni-san, Oni-chan, it's nice seeing you guys again. Isobu greeted in a deadpan tone. Never knew that you guys would be soft to a human since you loudly proclaimed that you hated his kind. Come on, Iso-chan, he's different. Kurama whined. Iso-chan? Yagura asked, making a great impression of a fish out of water. Would anyone please explain to me what that word means? Naruto asked again, but got no reply. Anyways, Shia-ne, I thought you were. I can shift forms, ya no, Shia explained, then got a tick mark on her face. Damn it, why can't I let go of that habit? She groaned. What's, damn it, came the innocent response of the blonde boy. It's, never mind. So, should I explain the situation now? Yes you should, Yagura replied. I wasn't asking you. But, Kura-ni-san, you weren't asking anyone in particular, so that makes the situation open for anyone to reply. Naruto pointed out, making the fox groan and mutter, smartass, under his breath. Okay, it kind of started on, well, the pregnancy of Kushina, my previous Jinchuriki. She got pregnant with twins, Kaito and Naruto, and somehow, a masked man stole both children under their parents' noses, telling them to give Kushina to him or their sons will die. Kurama paused. Long story short, the masked man ripped me out of my seal, controlled and forced me to destroy the village. Minato attempted to seal me in both of his sons, my soul and 2 tails of my chakra to Naruto while the rest of my chakra to Kaito. Since Kaito didn't have my soul, my chakra kept going back to me, and by the age of 16, Kaito wouldn't have any of my chakra left. Then, Isobu pressed on. Minato drove Naruto away since he thought that I'd control him. He sent him to the orphanage, practically disowning him, around a month after his birth. Naruto was, not really liked in the village, so, Kurama cringed a bit. Naruto-kun was beaten since he was 2 years old. At around 3, he met Anko, in Anbu, at the Forest of Death, and they hit off as siblings. Since then, Anko started to teach Naruto the basics of becoming a ninja, and he managed to be at least low Chunin level at the age of 4, Shia continued. At that age, one of the Sanins taught him how to become a shinobi, and he bonded well with a lot of people, mostly Anbu and the members of the T&I department. That's how he got his sadistic personality. I'm not that sadistic, Nei-chan, Naruto grumbled under his breath. So, I'm going to copy Kurama and say, long story short, his father took 2 tails of Kurama's chakra, but Naruto had gained another one, so he had 3 tails, since, as Kurama explained, a Biju's chakra, although sealed, would return to its soul. Then the Kumo incident happened, and Minato was planning to send Naruto away to the cloud for unknown reasons, so, we decided to leave the village for his own good, she finished, then got a honeyed, dark tone. And also, send him back to that hellhole and your village will be destroyed in 0.24 seconds. Okay, Yagura nodded. And now I have a brain overload. So, I'm guessing that you want him to stay in here? Isobu asked for confirmation. Not exactly. He'd be traveling the world and meeting the other Jinchurikis, and we're thinking of a Jinchuriki alliance, the fox explained. Okay then, welcome to Kirigakure, Naruto-san. This place is basically a maze, a foggy maze. Naruto grumbled under his breath as he struggled to catch up with the Mizukage's quick strides. How come you can survive in this place? And why can't you get rid of this mist? This mist holds two importances. 1. It serves as our primary defense should an enemy come to attack us. 2. It strengthens our senses other than sight since it clouds our vision and we have to rely on other senses, Yagura explained. Don't worry, by the time you reach the inside portion of the village, there's no mist, he reassured the blonde, taking a sharp corner to the right. Slow down, Naruto yelled, his hands itching to use a Fuuten jutsu and blow the annoying mist away. Fuuten. Daitopa, wind release, great breakthrough. The golden blonde sighed as the mist finally went away, giving him a clear vision. He expanded his sensory and found the Mizukage up in a tree, watching his movements with a critical eye. His eyebrow twitching, he pulled out a kunai and shot it at Yagura's direction. The said person should know that the blonde hated being observed. The Mizukage sighed and landed on the ground, dodging the sharp object in the process. You're a sensor and Fuuten-based? Yagura asked for confirmation. Yes, I'm a sensor but I'm not just Fuuten-based, in fact I have all the affinities plus an affinity for ice. How? As his face twisted into one of bewilderment, the sandy-haired lad asked incredulously. Did I forget to show my Rinnegan? Single quote. Yes you did, Kurama replied before going back to his nap. Or hibernation, whatever. With these, Naruto told him as he channeled chakra into his eyes, causing his Rinnegan to appear, displayed for all the world to see. His light blue orbs, bordering on white, turned violet with black rings in an instant. Yagura frowned, but those eyes are just myths. But now, you know that they aren't just myths. Isobu-san, please don't tell me that you didn't tell him your origin, said Naruto. Huh? Isobu? What does he mean? I hate to admit it, but I'm too lazy to tell the whole story of father, his family, and our creation. Isobu drawled before hiding and sleeping underneath his shell. Is the Kyuubi's laziness contagious? Yagura wondered out loud. Yes it is, Shia mumbled, shooting the said fox a withering glare. What connection does it have to me? Kurama yelled. I never did anything. Blame him for copying my attitude. Naruto made a face and blew out a raspberry, his purple eyes growing darker by each second. Yagura chuckled slightly as Isobu growled in his mindscape. Anything you want to say to me, you blonde brat? Isobu snarled, his voice echoing in Naruto's head. Tell me, I don't need to tell you anything, grouchy turtle, the blonde shot back. Shia snorted at his brother's new nickname whilst Kurama burst out into a fit of laughter, bipolar as always. Oh, we're here, Yagura announced as an attempt to stop the incoming fight, gratefully thanking one of the swordsmen. Hello, Zabuza-san, he greeted then sighed in relief. Mizukage-sama, the said man sketched a quick bow and looked up with blank eyes. His trusted sword, Kabikirabocho, rested by his back comfortably. Cow? Asked Naruto confusedly. It's Zabuza, you blonde brat. And I'm a human, the said swordsman snarled. But you're wearing cow-like pants. Does that mean you're half cow and half human? Curse you. I already am cursed, don't need to worry, Naruto replied, having flashbacks of what had happened to him in Konoha. Yagura stared at him in concern before brushing it off, but adding it to his mental notes. I hate you. Don't worry, everyone does. The two had a staring contest that lasted for 2 minutes. Their eyes stung a bit, but Naruto had a fox inside of him, so he didn't really need to blink every so often. In the end, Zabuza blinked, then growled at the blonde. Ha, I won. Naruto cheered, bouncing up and down, all around the place. He did what a kid would do. Stick out his tongue at the older man, causing the said person to glare at him harder and release a bit of killing intent. Also, Zabuza, Yagura called out, barely able to keep the sadistic grin off his face. Zabuza towards him, an eyebrow raised and some of the anger disappearing off his eyes. Naruto here will be staying with the swordsman of the mist for the time being, specifically in your house. What? The two screamed. You heard me right. Naruto is staying at your house. Zabuza, the short Mizukage grounded out each word, earning 2 twitches from his companions. There's no way in hell that I'd let this brat live in my house. Zabuza hollered in anger. And there's no way that I'd live with Mr. Cow. Naruto screamed at the Mizukage, totally losing his composure. Suck it up, you two. Yagura yelled, releasing his killing intent. Whether you like it or not, Naruto will stay at your damn house, Zabuza. And try not to kill each other. Byyyyyyyyyee. He screamed, then left in a water shunshin. By then, the two were thinking the same lines as the other. I'm going to kill Yagura. Just you wait, they thought angrily, storming off. This is my house, Zabuza gruffly made out. He had ignored the blonde until they reached his house, which was far away from the village, meaning he lived in an isolated area. The house wasn't big or small. In fact, it was relatively normal, seeming like 3 people can live there comfortably. The walls were painted gray, the ceiling having a lighter shade. Naruto sunk on one of the sofas, practically purring in delight. Oi, Gaki, don't hog the sofa all to yourself, Naruto heard the older say as he sat down on the same sofa as well. A few moments of silence passed by, only for the grumble of Naruto's stomach to break the peace. He flushed red in embarrassment, causing Zabuza to slightly chuckle and smirk. Was that your stomach, brat? Zabuza asked smugly. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. No. In fact it was a cat, growling at you, he replied sarcastically. Was that sarcasm? Was that stupidity? The blonde retaliated, glaring at the swordsman. The said person sighed, then stood up. I'm going to cook something. I'm hungry. You were hungry as well. So why tease me for it? So you admit that it was your stomach. I hate you. The feeling's entirely mutual. With that, Zabuza left the blonde, who was grumbling and muttering gibberish to himself. The swordsman sighed as he waited for the water to boil. What's wrong with that blonde brat? Why did he put the swordsman at ease, so much that he'd talk to him casually and not be tense? Zabuza had always been tense at someone's presence, so he tended to skip out meetings and crowds, preferring the solace of his home. All because he'd been an idiot. Why did he kill his classmates anyways? Of course, he knew it was a mock test, and Yagura wasn't the Mizukage back then. Their previous Mizukage, Terahiko Ao, was a complete idiotic tyrant. He ordered the 3 tails and 6 tails Jinchurikis to be isolated and trained in the harshest way possible. He changed the academy's courses, and the test had to be kill or be killed. The guilt and frustration had been creeping onto his spine these previous weeks, so he'd been bombarding Yagura for countless missions. Some were just B ranks, but he didn't care. He wanted to clear his mind for a little bit. He sighed for the second time in the kitchen, now stewing sulkily over a bowl of udon. Thoughts were going on a rampage in his mind, and it wasn't the best thing that could have happened to him. Cow, you there? Naruto peeked out from the door. What's taking you so? The udon's burning, he yelled, panicking. Zabuza hadn't realized that until the blonde yelled, being so absorbed in his thoughts. Great. He had to clear his mind again. Oi, help me, you lazy cow. Zabuza grunted. He wasn't in the mood, although this was his fault. So instead of helping, he turned around and attempted to go out of the room for another mission. Oi, where are you going? Outside. You do realize then your house will burn down, right? Naruto asked exasperatedly. Take care of it, brat. I'm not your housekeeper. Zabuza felt his patience wear thin. Why can't the brat just do what he said? It'd be better than arguing with him. Sweden. Mizu no Tatsumaki, water release, tornado of water. Naruto yelled, then released a burst of water. Zabuza's eyes widened. You're going to end up drowning both of us. Take care of it, cow. Naruto imitated him and attempted to leave the soggy and soaking kitchen, thanks to him. I hate you. Hate you too. And that is, my friends, how a tsundere confesses that he likes someone. Kurama yawned from his sleep. Maybe life in Kiri wouldn't be as bearable as Naruto thought. Omake, was that your stomach, brat? Zabuza asked smugly. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. No. In fact it was a cat, growling at you, he replied sarcastically. Brat, cow, brat, cow, brat, cow, brat, cow. At that moment, Yagura had decided to walk in to notice how the two were doing. He blinked as a pillow hit him on the face, the others flying all over the apartment. Shut up you insolent brat. You shut up you cross-dressing cow. Yagura bit back his laughter at how the two were doing. Sneaking up behind them, he muttered one word, boo. The two screamed at the top of their lungs, causing the source of their shock to roll over the floor, laughing. The other two growled, lunging at the sandy-haired Mizukage. "Come back here!" Zabuza and Naruto screamed in unison. "Nah, you two are just sore losers." Yagura did a very childish thing and blew out a raspberry. "Ya gu ra tilde?" The two yelled demonically. "Kami, this just made my day," thought the Mizukage cheerfully as he skipped all around the village once he lost his pursuers. The fourth Hokage of Konoha leaned on the railings on the rooftop of the Namikaze compound, a faraway look decoration his face as he began pondering over his mistakes, as a person, a Hokage, a husband, a student and most of all, as a father. To be a father, he knew how shocked he was when he heard about Kushina's pregnancy for their children. He had been ecstatic, blabbing about it every second to his best friends. Fugaku had given him a tired yet amused look whilst Hiyashi sighed and rubbed his temples as if he had a migraine, and even then, he could explain how much joy he had experienced that day. Sure, Kushina was pretty scary, having random mood swings every now and then and craving for foods that do not go along with each other, but he cherished every moment of it. The feeling only increased as he felt a kick when he placed his hand on Kushina's stomach, a sign that their children already identified him as their father. But all of that changed due to a single night. And the worst mistake he could have ever made. When Kushina gave birth to Kato, he admired how much beautiful he was, as well as his second-born, Naruto. He and Kushina debated over the names for a plenitude of times, but the news of having twins made an agreement between them, that Kushina will name one and Minato the other. He loved the both of his children, they represented the love between him and Kushina. They represented the hope he had, and in some way, he felt attached to them quickly, just like any father would. But just because of a masked man, he made the gravest mistake, sending off his second-born child to the orphanage, leaving Naruto to fend for himself, alone and in an environment filled with hatred. He couldn't explain how much worry he had when Kushina was in the masked man's clutches, and how much fear he had when the Kyuubi appeared in all its glory, underneath the control of the assaulter. He knew that a Jinchuriki dies without his or her Biju, and the feeling of losing another precious person was too much for him to bear. Simply to put it, he was afraid to lose another person, and with that, he hadn't realized that he had lost one in the process. He focused his attention to Kato, in order to quench the twinge in his heart. His firstborn had grown into a young boy who will surely be a magnificent shinobi, and being the one who raised the said boy made him proud. He continued being the perfect father in everyone's eyes, but he knew that he had never been. Because for his other, unknown child. He watched from the sidelines, behind the shadows as his other son grew up. He watched as Naruto stood up for himself, doing and experiencing things no child and no one should have ever done. He watched as the boy learned lessons that were given to him earlier than the rest. He watched as Naruto grew up as a fine shinobi, better than his brother. Yes, he only watched. And it made him hate himself. Despite being a prodigy, he was pretty clear with the fact that Naruto needed parents. He needed someone to guide him to the right path, to comfort and console him in his time of need, and to be a person that he could always depend on. But even if he could be that person, he was too cowardly to be him. He was afraid that if he brought the blonde into his care, into his house, Naruto would kill everyone he loved without a second thought. It was a stupid reason, he knew, but he could control his emotions like everyone expected him to. And he despised that fear. But somehow, in his heart, he knew that he was just following what he knew to do, due to his own childhood. Despite most of the villagers' assumptions, he did not live a life full of luxury and relaxation. It was the opposite, and relatively the same towards his son's own. When he was a baby, his mother abandoned him in the orphanage. It turned out that he was a product of rape, not love. He grew up believing that his mother nor his father loved him, as he neither knew their identities nor did they visit him once in a while. As a child, he lived in the streets of Kirigakure after being thrown out of the orphanage, or more likely saved by the matrons as the Mizukage burned down the building, and had stealing as a way of survival. There he refined his reflexes and speed, as well as the ability to know danger as a sixth sense. It wasn't easy at all. The Mizukage back then was strict and did not even spare children in the laws and punishments he ordered. Once, he was caught, and was tortured for it. He still had scars to prove it. But the Mizukage took note of his silence throughout the entire session, and let him go on one condition: join the swordsmen. He agreed, but in his mind, he he planned his escape, and 2 weeks after, he left the village. He arrived in Konoha, tired and worn out, only to be found by one of the Sannin, the person he could consider his father. Then he met Kushina, an orphan like him, but he just couldn't fathom how she stayed happy and upbeat all the time. He fell in love, and held the bond with Kushina as the strongest one he had. But he never told anyone his story, because he knew no one will understand. Yet, his son did. He experienced the same pain, the same suffering, and the same isolation. He felt ashamed to have another experience worse than what he had experienced, but he somehow felt happy at the same time, now that one could share his pain. Slowly, Minato turned to look up in the sky, his emotions a jumbled mess. He never was ready to be a father, he could throw his emotions for the sake of his child. It was then when he realized. To become a father was harder than one would have ever thought. In a whirl of water, a kneeling boy, nearly 12 years of age, appeared. His Anbu mask was black, lined with red and gold to symbolize his animal, a fox. His golden hair was tied up in a low ponytail, its end reaching just an inch above his ankles. His porcelain skin was still unblemished, although the inky black tattoo of an Anbu commander contrasted it. That boy was none other than Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, an Anbu commander and the Mizukage in training, both of them being achieved at the young age of 9. Apart from that, he had the swordsman of the mist wrapped around his little finger, since they literally adored him. Zabuza also had an apprentice, one whom the man met during his border patrol mission, and Naruto still had to meet the boy one of the days. "Yes, Yagura-chan? How many times have I told you to stop calling me that?" The short Mizukage huffed at the nickname, scowling at the blonde boy. "Half a hundred multiplied to twice the sum of 3 and 15, Naruto hummed thoughtfully. Yagura stared at the ceiling for less than 30 seconds, computing it silently in his head. "So, 1,800 times, then." He trailed off, realizing that the Anbu commander in front of him was actually chuckling at his face. The sand-haired boy glared at him before giving up, knowing that the blonde was literally Kitsune. The boy's body went alert, and the chuckles ceased in an instant. "You have a new mission. What is it, Yagura?" Yagura was actually thankful that the "chan" was off his name for even once. "I'm sorry. I meant Yagura-chan," the said Mizukage's eye twitched at the nickname. So much for thinking that the suffix was off. "So what's the mission?" "The Hokage called for a cage summit," said the Mizukage, continuing his paperwork, grumbling something along the lines of, "damned paperwork. He says that it's something pertaining to a threat to the Jinchuriki." "Threats? I presume that it's the Akatsuki." The pen that was scribbling on the paperwork stopped momentarily. "Akatsuki?" Yagura asked, confused. "New Dawn? That's a nice name for an organization." "A criminal organization," Naruto corrected. "Don't worry, you'll know about them more in the Cage Summit," he said with a cheeky grin. Yagura groaned for what seemed to be like the 100th time during the day. "Just tell me, Aura." There were 3 sudden knocks on the door, causing Naruto to tense then relax as he recognized the unknown person's chakra signal. He hastily fixed his mask and blended into the shadows whilst Yagura said, "Come in." Mizukage-sama, a chunin who had the name of Ryu, Naruto realized, was kneeling in front of his village's leader, his mouth pressed into a grim line and his eyes showing obvious distaste. "What is it?" The rebellion's growing larger by each day. Yagura's and Naruto's shoulders tensed at the mention of the rebellion, as the chunin placed several sheets of paper on the table. Basically, the rebellion consisted of people who despised Jinchuriki and believed that they were nothing but weapons. Those were the people that Naruto detested the most. Idiotic and blind people who refused to open their eyes to the truth. Unluckily, an eighth of Kirigakure's population hated being under Yagura's authority. That being said, the village was huge and the population was too. However, fortunately, most of them were civilians, as the shinobi in the village were open-minded people and knew the difference between a kunai and a scroll. "We also suspect that the civilian council has something to do with this, Mizukage-sama. We interrogated some members of the rebellion and they all said one thing why they were doing it. It's because of someone blackmailing them and threatening to kill their families. We pressed on who is that person behind the schemes, but they refused to talk," informed Ryu, whose eyes were glued to the floor, shaking a bit at the amount of killing intent released in the air. "Those damned bastards," thought Yagura, and for a split second his eyes flashed red. Ryu, thank you for the information. Dismissed, Ryu nodded and disappeared in a water shunshin. Anbu, summon the council for a meeting. Yagura raised his voice, giving a clear order. Hi. After the hidden Anbu had left, Naruto came out of his hiding place and looked at his best friend with concern evident in his eyes. He released a sigh, grabbing the stack of papers and began reading them with keen interest. What are you planning now? He mumbled, not keeping his eyes off the detailed report. Showing them who's boss, Yagura laughed maniacally. The blonde boys stared at him blankly, hitting him on the head. Please keep your sadistic fantasies to yourself, Yagura-chan. That's rich for someone who tortures people for fun, messes around with people's minds just to see them panic around, and makes deals for information that even I do not know, Yagura retorted. Naruto smirked. Touché, he chuckled. I was always the one who held the information between our little Jinchuriki group. Ah, yes. During those 4 years, Naruto had went to the villages harboring the Jinchuriki. He met Gaara, Yugito, Roshi, Han, Fu, and Killer Bee, plus their respective tenants. That aside, he had quite some trouble in going to Iwa and Kumo, especially in Kumo as the raikage there demanded why he ran away. He explained his sad story, and the raikage apologized and welcomed him even more in his village. Together, the Biju inside of him trained him to the bone, and he couldn't complain, not even one bit. As sadistic they were, he couldn't deny the results. They were the main reason why he had managed to reach this far. Sighing, he followed Yagura as they both went to the conference room, with the council waiting inside. Both of them glared at the civilian council as they passed by, and those death glares caused everyone to shiver. No one dared to ask what was wrong. The two were notorious for their bloodlust and ways on how to intimidate or torture someone. The civilian council kept their mouths shut, seeing that their Mizukage and his most trusted Anbu were in a bad mood, everyone else glad for the change. And common sense. Mizukage-sama, what's this meeting for? Aoi Teruki, one of the clan heads, spoke up, looking like he had just came out from the dead. Not that I'm complaining, it's nice to have a break from paperwork. A few fellow clan heads chuckled and shook their heads at the joke as some sent the Aoi a concerned look, especially at his appearance. Teruki huffed, crossing his arms. What did you expect from a person who's basically under house arrest doing 100 tons of paperwork every day? We expected that person to look at least presentable. Especially in front of our dear Kitsune-sama. Saito Miza grinned and gave the blonde a wink, in which Naruto chuckled at. Yagura glared at her. Why am I the one left out? Aren't I supposed to be the one you're giving attention to? And besides, this is a meeting, not a friendly banter between old coots who are stuck doing paperwork. As if you aren't, retorted an amused Naruto, ducking the shorter staff and reveling in the civilian council's surprised looks. Oh, wait, Yagura-chan, the topic's getting out of hand. That's what I was telling you, the sandy-haired Mizukage threw his hands up in complete exasperation. But no one listens to me when you're around. Maybe I should leave then? Offered Naruto, turning to smirk, but it was unseen, and thankfully it was or some would have nosebleeds at him. Yagura crossed his arms, shaking his head in the negative. Anyways, interrupted one of the members of the civilian council with a cough. Why did you call us, Mizukage-sama? Putting things aside, I'm sure that you were aware about the rebellion, Yagura started, his sharp eyes not missing some of the flinches of the civilian council. And yes, I am well aware that you helped the person behind the schemes. We do, Mizukage-sama, Miza said softly, earning aghast looks from the rest. But we also fear our lives and most importantly, our families. So it seems, the Mizukage said with a forlorn sigh, but, he added sharply, we would be placing a couple of Jonin around your homes, for protection. A few went speechless at his declaration. They, well, Miza, admitted that they were included in this rebellion, and yet, he still wanted to go through the trouble of protecting them? Miza smiled softly, ducking her head in gratitude. Thank you, Yagura-san, she whispered, her smile still present. Yagura cleared his throat, a blush starting to form on his cheeks. Discreetly, Naruto elbowed him, amusement sparkling in his eyes. He got the receiving end of Yagura's I'm the Mizukage don't mess with me glare, though. But it was worth it, he thought, smirking as the blush was evident on the sand-haired boy's face. Then it's done. Dismissed, he told the others, staying behind as the rest got up and left gradually. As he last person exited the room, he turned around and glared at his Anbu commander. Laughing, Naruto removed his mask and dodged Yagura's hits. "Ah, Yagura-chan, are you mad?" he asked teasingly, but yelped as Yagura attempted to hit him with his staff. "Naruto, shut up." Someone cleared their throat. The two blinked owlishly and stared at the kneeling Anbu. "I apologize, Mizukage-sama, but we received a scroll from the Hokage. The Cage Summit was moved tomorrow, and it has a list of reasons that I would rather not state." Naruto had to chuckle at that. Yagura nodded and dismissed him, his face twisted into a scowl. "And Taiko," Naruto glanced at him, a questioning look on his face. Owl grinned mischievously, mock wonder in his eyes. "I never knew you swung that way," and he promptly shunshined away. Yagura and Naruto flushed red until the latter regained his bearings. "Owl, I'm not gay. Get back in here, you retard. Are you ready, Yagura-chan?" Naruto poked his head in the said person's room. Yagura grunted, adjusting his cage's hat on. He grabbed his staff and cleared his throat, saying, "I am." "Is everything prepared?" Naruto gave a nod. "You Takata and I will escort you, and 3 of your personal Anbu will keep an eye out for any unseemly opponents." "How long will the travel time be?" inquired the Mizukage. Naruto hummed a tune, "Around 5 minutes max if you'd let me hear Ishin all of you to the border of the Land of Iron." Yagura sent him a wry look. If the sandy-haired boy had any say in it, he'd rather not, but they were running late, and he didn't want to arrive there when the summit was already over. That would be rather embarrassing, especially for a cage. He sighed, groaning as it seemed to be the only choice, but nodded in response. "All right then," he cheered, but schooled his features. He was the Anbu commander, damn it, he scolded himself in his head. "Ready?" he asked, connecting his chakra to the other 5. A collective chorus of, "Hi," was their reply. Naruto smirked in anticipation, and without warning, he Ishined them towards their destination. "I think I'm going to puke." Yagura groaned, holding his stomach in his mouth. The others weren't faring well either. Utakata's face turned into an odd shade of green, and one of 3 Anbu was vomiting his insides, divinity XD, disregarded. And while they were suffering, Naruto was laughing at their predicament. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Utakata put it bluntly, sounding exasperated. "Never mind, don't answer my question, all of us already know." "It isn't that bad," Naruto's laughter toned down into mere chuckles. "You just have to get used to it." "And how did you know the Ishin?" questioned Utakata, a confused glint in his eyes. No one in the village had the copy of such a technique. And Konoha doesn't seem to be generous in giving it. "Let's just say that I came from that village," replied Naruto, being very vague about it. He sighed. "Let's just talk about it next time, alright?" Utakata nodded in response, causing gratefulness to rise from Naruto's chest. He didn't know that the Jinchuriki trusted him that much. "Is everyone ready?" One of the Anbu confirmed his cage's question, patting his teammate, who vomited earlier, in the back, dusting off his pants. "Let's head inside," said Yagura, checking the position of the sun. "I think we are already late." Mizukage Dune, Onoki greeted, his Tsuchikage hat nearly falling. "I see you have finally arrived." Yagura ignored the provoking sentence. "I apologize," he started, ignoring the man's surprised look. "We've encountered some trouble on our way here," he explained briefly. "It's nothing to worry about. We have already taken care of it." "Is it the rebels?" I presumed, slapping the table. It clanged, loudly, making nearly everyone jolt in surprise. "Ha, I always knew that your village's prosperity would soon end." Yagura gritted his teeth in anger. "Please refrain yourself from saying such things, Raikage Dono. I do not take insults lightly, nor do my men." As soon as he said that, the Raikage felt cold metal touching his neck. A cold whisper brushed against his ear and he shivered, schooling his features into a snarl. Naruto chuckled internally, teleporting right behind Yagura, the latter paying no mind to it. He was used to it by now. "Never knew that a cage would be afraid at that sentence," commented Kurama in his head, laughing. "You copied that from the story you read last night, didn't you?" "And if I did?" asked the boy coyly. It's not like anybody actually remembers, apart from Yagura. But he didn't ask me, nor did he remark on it. "Hokage Dono," Rasa interrupted, swiftly changing the attention towards the blonde Hokage. "What is your purpose of calling a summit? What was that threat?" You don't know? Onoki asked, surprised. I thought that you two, allies, he gave Minato a pointed look, who brushed it off, this fueling the man's anger. Would tell each other what you know. I'm afraid that is not the case this time, replied Rasa, sending a glance of disdain, along with Minato, to the aged Kage. Hokage Dono? Akatsuki, said Minato, as if the word explained everything. Everyone stared at him questioning, save for Naruto. He had already known that. Akatsuki, or the New Dawn, is a criminal organization and has S-rank Nukenin as its members. One of my trusted had planted spies in their organization, and found out that they are hunting down the Jinchuriki, or more specifically, the Biju. Their motives are still unknown, but something along the lines of creating a new world to suit their beliefs is what we are guessing it to be. Creating a new world? This time, it was Yagura who spoke, his voice incredulous. How are they going to manage to do that? A massive genjutsu can, but experienced shinobi can cancel it out. It may be possible, Mizukage-sama, as far-fetched as it seems. Combining the 9 Biju would lead to unlimited power, considering that each of them have a variety of abilities that differ from one another. They only need a proper vessel to control and manipulate, said Naruto thoughtfully, ignoring the shocked looks of the others. He felt Yagura elbow him for speaking so suddenly, smirking in odd delight. Minato nodded, that was my sensei's thought as well. Thankfully, he hadn't noticed Naruto's scowl behind his mask. We have found out 2 of their current members, but it seems that one of them died in a battle back at Kiri. Kiri? Naruto wanted to voice out. What happened back in the village? Mei-san is pretty well versed and adept in attacking and defending. Who we left back there was actually Yagura's personal Anbu teams. If someone had attacked, they would have a difficult time. Unless it is a Nukenin from Kiri, then sneaking in would be quite easy. Yagura's thoughts were similar to his, but his uneasiness was sealed off, a mask of indifference present. Onoki looked at him in surprise, seeing as he didn't so much as flinch at the mention of his village under attack. As an organization, its members are easy to locate. The Akatsuki wears cloaked with red clouds engraved on it, and they attack, normally, in pairs. We believe that there are 8 of them in total, continued Minato, eyes glancing briefly at the fox-masked Anbu. There was something familiar about him, he was sure of it, but he didn't know what type of familiar. An acquaintance? A past opponent? He pushed away his thoughts as 2 words echoed in his head. His son? Regarding this matter, I am sure that my Jinchuriki are well inside the village, the Tsuchikage started. They are trained, and inside the village, there are defenses that might be impossible to sneak in, he stated proudly, his 2 companions smirking and grinning in response. The Jinchuriki in my village will always be alright. They are guarded, I continued, his raikage hat clenched in between his hand. Those bastards will not lay a hand on them. He swiftly changed the word in a second, but others still caught it. As for me, my Jinchuriki is safe, since he is dangerous and would probably kill those shinobi, Rasa added in his head. I have no qualms and worries abilities his matter. I, myself, am a Jinchuriki. And I know all of you are well aware, said Yagura flatly, rolling his eyes at the looks of the other cages. My village may be in a civil war, but we would be safe inside. Defense is one of Kirigakure's strongest aspect, and it would not change. It seems so. I suppose that this summit is dismissed? Minato suggested, standing up and bowing to others, who followed his suit. The cage's bodyguards flanked their respective ones, each sending a warning to each of them. There was a fire that rose in Naruto's eyes as he stared at his biological father's back, a snarl nearly ripping out of his throat as he read the man's thoughts. You and I both know that I will never forgive you, Namikaze Minato. Brat, you seem to be a bad mood. That was Zabuza's way of greeting, no matter how weird it was. Utakata is grumpy, as always. Did someone pop your balloons? I mean bubbles? Mizu, Yagura is happy. Did you actually ask your crush out? Naruto looked at him strangely. Utakata glared at him and so did Yagura, although the latter had a blush forming on his pale cheeks. Is it wrong for me to actually want to snap his neck into 2? Wondered the Anbu commander. Or strangle him? But I guess it is. And no, someone didn't pierce Utakata's balloon. I mean Bubbles, and Yagura is too much of a coward to actually ask Mizu-chan out. For the last time, they are not balloons, Utakata growled. They are chakra bubbles for goodness sake. No need to yell, Uda-chan, The three of them turned to see a smirking Amayuri. We all know that they're chakra balloons. And seriously? Yagura asking Misa out? He's as hopeless as a teenage girl trying to confess to her crush. Where are the others? It's only you? Asked Naruto. Jinpachi is with his boyfriend. You all know who it is. Juzo left the village a month ago, stating that he had a mission, and he still hadn't come back. The others are probably hanging out by the hot springs or sneaking a mission scroll and going out. Kami, they haven't gained Naruto's bad habit, right? At Amayuri's chuckle, he grew more nervous. Right? They actually did. We all did, the Six Tails' Jinchuriki admitted. I sneaked mission scrolls 5 times and only stopped when Kushimaru was caught and sent to clean the public restrooms for a week. What in the F***C King world, the short Mizukage deadpanned. Just when I thought I'd only be dealing with this little brat, Yagura forcefully shoved the said brat by the arm. Naruto stumbled a bit, laughing in hysteria. Someone tells me that I'd be babysitting other children. Children, huh? Jinpachi's voice echoed, his dark tone evident on it. What do you mean children? Yagura paused in his rant, swiveling to face one of the members. He gave him a glare, fixed his Mizukage robes and took off the hat. It felt so heavy for a thing that looked light. I mean it, young child, he mocked, using a shunshin to his office, where he was sure a mountain of paperwork was working for him. So, the only girl broke the silence, purposefully drawing the word. I want to know your love lives. Especially you two, Pachi, Maru. The two men blushed in unison. Okay, with that, I'm out. Naruto finally decided. Yagura stared at the paper in front of him, closing his eyes tiredly. An attack. Not from the rebellion, but 3 of his trusted, and the last one hurt him the most. It was dark inside the room where 2 men resided. The first one leaning against a chair leisurely with a calm expression on his face, a smile beginning to form, whilst the second one was as calm as composed as the other, if not for the clench of his fists. The first gestured his guest to sit down, and the other reluctantly obliged, still keeping up his neutral expression, even when the one clearly in more power chuckled out of amusement. No matter what you might do, I still take it that you've understood our deal, am I right? Yes. The reply was quiet, yet it held a lot of hatred, as if it was forced out of its cause's mouth. A chuckle resounded. Very well, then, I shall see to my part of the deal. Expect your share by the start of October. During that period of time, 2 months, quite long, I might add, I want you to infiltrate the base and destroy. There is no need for you to elaborate my mission. I perfectly understand the circumstances, sir, and I will do my best to finish it. As long as you are going to fulfill your part, I shall perform mine. Cerulean eyes flashed a deathly red as vibrant green orbs, with a twinkle of satisfaction, met his own. We have an agreement, Kitsune. Zabuza nearly spit out his drink as Yagura finished explaining the details of what had happened, and what was on his report. The swordsman growled in fury, on whether it was because of the report or the person who had done the trouble, or possibly the betrayal. The Mizukage didn't know, nor did he want to find out. It's fake. It must be a setup. Zabuza started heatedly. Naruto would never betray us. I understand Juzo's betrayal. I've never really trusted the guy. But Naruto is like my son and little brother combined. We've been with him for the most part of his life, and we can't say that his happiness and actions are fake. This must be a setup. The demon of the mist felt tears spring up in his eyes. Mizukage-sama, please tell me that this is a setup. People change over time, Zabuza, even to him. Yagura felt that his voice was cold and unfeeling. It may be an act. We can't let our personal feelings come into play. The village and the inhabitants' lives are at stake. Zabuza, yes I know, he cut off and glared at the swordsman, who was about to protest and refute his words. I can't just let Naruto off the hook. The details, the report, the evidence are justified and true. I need a very convincing reason why it had turned out like that. I don't see why the child would betray us. Yagura closed his eyes in complete and utter exhaustion. I know Zabuza. That is something we must figure out. Why did he do this? For power? He never was power hungry. Apart from that, he is the one who had the most potential out of all the shinobi and kunoichi in Mizugakure. For fun? I don't really think that he is the type who'd sell people's lives out just for sheer entertainment. S-rank shinobi are dangerous. The 2 men turned to look at Utakata, who was standing at the doorway with his eyes closed and arms shrugged. Naruto is in between an A- rank and S rank shinobi, and nearly every person who had that title went against their village to create their own, lest they be puppets controlled by their cage. I can see why he'd do this. You don't know anything about him, you just stayed by the sidelines and became a mere friend of his. Yelled Zabuza. Utakata scoffed in indignation and stared straight at the other without batting an eye and a hint of fear, just pure courage and annoyance. You're too caught up with your feelings, Zabuza. You refuse to admit that one of your own had betrayed you, which is why you led most of your friends to oblivion. Don't even try to deny it. We all know what had exactly happened that day, the Jinchuriki sneered. You're as incompetent as ever, Momochi. I wonder how did you reach your power at this height when you are so narrow-minded and disdainfully idiotic? Why, you little piece of shish. Both of you, enough. Yagura raised his voice, giving him the impression of a true Mizukage. The other two snapped their mouths shut and looked down on the ground. Shame etched on their faces, yet anger was still present on the swordsman's face. This is my office. If you have an argument, then take it outside. The two nodded in agreement as they stood up and hurried to the door. Although Utakata, the man in question, paused in his footsteps. I can't believe you said those words. Utakata faced his cage directly, not a hint of fear in his tone. I thought you'd understand, Mizukage-sama. The village comes first before petty things such as emotions and bonds, he finished as his hand opened the door. He paused and turned back, melancholy filling his expression. Don't think I don't understand you. After all, you're not the only one who wanted to refuse that you've been betrayed, and you're not the only one who has a little brother. Utakata moved on and closed the door quietly, his footsteps echoing farther and farther away. We're fucked up, Zabuza sighed. We really are fucked up, both in emotions and mind. Yagura laughed at the dry joke, although it felt fake, and he shouldn't be laughing at this moment of time. And Utakata is the worst one out of us, he muttered, torn between being amused or frustrated. He never really knew how to express emotions because of that event. Blood, gashes, cuts. Zabuza sighed. I'm supposed he is. A sword, a corpse. He never really was one for socializing even when he was an innocent kid. He tried to ignore the flashing images in his mind and continued his tirade, but still, I think that this is a setup. Naruto would never do that. Ni-san, don't leave me. You promised we'd be together. Ni-san. Zabuza? The swordsman bit the insides of his mouth harshly and tasted the coppery taste of blood. Are you alright? Asked Yagura, concerned. Flashbacks, he guessed as he saw the man's obvious discomfort. I'm fine, I just need to rest. I'm a bit tired after today's events, after all. He lied easily without blinking. If you may excuse me, Mizukage-sama, he finished with a bow and hurried out of the room to suppress the emotions in his heart. Yagura could easily discern his emotions like it was finding the difference between the colors red and blue, and that was annoying. The Mizukage sighed as he watched the door close. He twirled the pen in his hand, which he had forgotten a while ago. He gave a sardonic smile at no one and nothing in particular and chuckled, we are really messed up. Messed up, indeed. Naruto bit his lips as he finished packing up his things, then dropped the letters on his mattress. I hate you so much, he whispered under his breath. I really loathe you. Calm down, Kit, you might lose control because of your anger, the Jubi began, although, are you sure that this is what you will do? Is this really what you want? She questioned softly, coaxing Naruto to cool down. After you do this, you might never be welcomed back. Your precious people might hate you for your actions, and maybe you'd end up alone. Please, Kit, rethink about this choice. I will do any means to protect them. Even if it means that I will be hated or despised, even if they want to kill me, I won't regret what I've done. I've already made up my mind. The boy smiled. Besides, what's the use of watching them, from the sidelines, reach their end? This is much better than that. Kurama had stayed quiet for the most part, although his sadness and frustration was rolling off of his form in waves, making it ever easy to realize his current feelings. Are you sure? He asked, seeing that his sister wouldn't respond. I am. Thank you for your concern, Kurama Ne-chan. As on the outside, Naruto went out of the window and bypassed the village's security, already making his way to the forest, seeming very peaceful. Inside his head was an entirely different matter. It was chaotic, filled with worries and insecurities, Thoughts, most of which are illogical and caused out of paranoia and concern, and of course, the two Bijus hushed conversation, as to not alert and confuse their Jinchuriki. You know, humans are such confusing creatures. Emotions are, too. Hours later Naruto left. A distraught swordsman was seen inside the said person's room, clutching a piece of paper in his hand as tears fell down his face. Zabuza Momochi wasn't a man of emotions and words, he was rather blunt and cold, especially to strangers and his enemies. The reason why he got the title, Demon of the Mist, wasn't too far off. Although to his close friends, they'd see him as a socially and emotionally awkward person, probably stemming from his tragic childhood, and it was a common topic for laughter and teasing for most of the time. He rarely cried, the last he had was when he was 5, and he had complete shut down his emotions once had trained under the cruel 4th Mizukage, as he was taught to. Shinobi are not supposed to show emotion, the man had said, and he believed that until Yagura, with the help of the Kirigakure shinobi, overthrew the late Mizukage and replaced him. Grinning idiotically to himself despite his tears, and his contorted face, he continued reading the letter until he finished, and whispered, "Idiot," as he noticed the last words of the soon-to-be-called runaway Anbu commander. "See you soon, Tu-chan." Naruto. As the swordsman put down the letter with uttermost gentleness and care, he couldn't help but recall some of his locked-up memories. He gritted his teeth at the influx of events whizzing past his head and dropped to his knees, holding his head in a desperate attempt to seal most of his memories off at worst, and all of them at best. Yet, fate possibly hated him for being a cruel murderer, as it hadn't stopped. Under the gleaming moonlight, a woman with long, blue hair smiled brightly at him and welcomed him home. Beside her sat an older boy who looked almost exactly like Zabuza, although with softer features and a gentle smile. The two rushed to hug the 5-year-old child with identical smiles and laughter, and the younger him had a smile akin to his older brother. "Tadaima, ni-san, ka-chan." 7-year-old Zabuza smiled happily. "Father and I are back." Behind him stood a man with black hair and imposing features, although his eyes were softened by love. Gasping for air, Zabuza chuckled ironically. Sure, fate hated him. It hated him all right, because if it didn't, then it shouldn't have taken the two most precious to him. And now, it had taken the third. He couldn't help but remember his mother's last words. "Welcome back home, my son." That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.